ready to Y'all ready for this? Did you ever have jock jams when you were young? You know what jock jams is? You remember this?
I remember that.
It was like a compilation of songs you hear like at a Leafs game.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
You know what I mean?
What
like
else? That'd be like
the sports games.
Hey! Yeah, exactly. And I think Rock the Casbah was on there too.
Oh, yeah.
Because for some reason, Rock the Casbah is like a hockey song or like a sports song.
I wish it wasn't.
It is.
What's a Casbah?
It's like
Is it like a
the
cash
place?
bar like at our wedding?
Isn't it just like the place, like the joint,
Like
the spot?
like the Casbah. Yeah,
I don't know
what it is.
That's a good question.
It
I think
got
it's the spot.
rocked.
I think it's like the spot, like Rock the
Yeah.
Casbah. You know what I mean? Like wherever you
Yeah.
are, rock
Maybe
that spot.
should we bring that back as like bring that out as like a slang?
Yeah.
Like, what are you
Yeah.
doing tonight?
me at
We rocking the Casbah tonight. Or like,
Or like meet me at the Casbah.
meet me at the Casbah.
Like what is that?
No
It's
one knows.
secret.
Is that like yeah? Anyways,
That's hilarious. Though.
All right, welcome to the Damaged Goods Podcast. We are Jess, Robert, and Ill Vibe, and we will be entertaining you for this evening. So pour yourself a glass of wine and bathe in the sweet, sweet sound of our beautiful voices.
is this like romantic late night independent radio?
This is like
We're going to be reading love letters from
Like,
lonely
am I
people until
intruding
3 in the
here, or,
morning.
like, what's the deal? Like
This is actually how we role play. We just bring people over and we talk sexy in front of them.
make them.
We don't even really record
see
it.
how uncomfortable they get?
Our fetish is uncomfortable people.
I can appreciate
I get off
that.
a lot then.
I love being uncomfortable. It's like my favorite suit.
Oh,
That's why
sweet.
we
How
that's why
uncomfortable
gave
can
you
we
that
get?
dope $20 chair.
Right, of course, yeah. The most uncomfortable
We're
chair,
saving up
like,
money right now. We're going to do a Kickstarter for a better chair.
Yeah.
Working on it.
I'm in.
A big thanks, as always, to lyricvids.com, the web's #1 lyric video animation company.
An official sponsor of our chairs.
Yes. We have an awesome guest. I do say that about all our guests, as somebody pointed out recently, but all of our guests are awesome. So
We didn't start by booking not awesome people, right?
Yeah, exactly. This guest is no different. She's self-made. She's impressive. She is Lynn Banks.
Hey.
I was like, does it make me great if you say that about everybody? I was like, how great am I now?
In
Like,
the the group of our guests, you're pretty average actually.
like, I mean, I am onto the Damaged Good podcast, so I feel like how great could I possibly
It's damaged
be?
goods with an S. I appreciate you getting it right.
Yeah, I tried.
That'd be
I
nice.
tried.
So if you want to follow along and check Lynn out while you're listening to this podcast, her Instagram is Icon Island, spelt with a 0 as the O. Icon Island. That's on Instagram, and on Twitter, it's Icon Island, spelt the normal way.
Is Instagram like the primary place that you interact with humans around the world? Or do you do Twitter pretty hard too? Because you and I just chat on Instagram.
Yeah, I used to be super hard on Twitter. Like, I've got tons of followers. I'm like triple the amount of, or probably 7 times the amount as Instagram. But Instagram's now like the go-to because, like you said, it's just so easy to like hit someone with a message. I feel like no one really like gets back to you on Twitter. Like if I message you on Twitter right now, like how quickly would you hit me back?
Oh no, I don't ever check my
As
Twitter
opposed to,
inbox.
like Instagram, I know you'd hit me in like a few minutes probably, or like whenever you're free.
Yeah, Twitter inboxes are pretty spammy in my experience.
Yes.
I'm not a big Twitter person, but I know that whenever I have checked my messages on Twitter, it's been like just all like ads, like just like, hey.
Twitter's gone through some funny evolution because it almost died. Where it just, in terms of relevance, it was still very much there, but it stopped being what it was, and it kind of went through let's call it a dead period. But then it kind of came back when the world kind of got disenfranchised with Facebook, and some of the charm from Facebook wore off, and we realized it wasn't just way better than Twitter and MySpace and everything. It was sort of the same thing. All of a sudden, I saw Twitter kind of bounce back a little bit, and it's become. I did a little bit of work with Twitter last year on the video front, and when I was there, they were talking about their new identity it's the place people go to discuss what's important to them. So if they're really upset about something, they go to Twitter about it. If somebody fucked them over, they go to Twitter about it. If their favorite celebrity is announcing something, they're announcing it on Twitter. So it becomes
And
the place
also-
where those things are discussed. You know.
Yeah, and like I find like stuff like information goes up quicker on Twitter than it does on like Instagram, which is like a weird thing because like Instagram is more like everyone's kind of on it, but like Twitter, like I'll be on Twitter and I'll see something and then like literally like an hour later I'll see it on Instagram and I'm like, that was weird, like why is that on Twitter first? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I feel like Instagram's definitely, because it is more like photos, it definitely isn't the spot to like get your news or get your like,
Yeah.
you know what
That's
I
an
mean?
interesting thing to think about is they're all essentially the same. Like my friends
Yeah,
at Twitter basically
kind of.
describe Twitter as like an ad platform that you write stuff on. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you just share your thoughts.
But most of what they do is advertise to you. That's 80% of their employees over at Twitter are advertising employees. Same thing at Facebook, I imagine. Same thing at most of those online companies. So it's pretty similar in some ways. But then it's so different in that it clearly has a different, like the fabric's made, it's like made of a different fabric almost. Like you would use it for different things in different ways. And something that would seem so obvious to do on one platform would seem very strange to do on the other one. And I don't think that's entirely made up. I think it's...
No, I think
almost
they each
wonder if
serve their
algorithm
own like
supports
purpose.
that. I.e., for example, maybe Twitter has a very news-heavy algorithm. The minute that something is going, they're like, fuck what your friends are talking about. We're trying to get the headline out immediately. Because Facebook's kind of gone the other way. And it's like they prioritize who you know better in terms of what to show you. So I could
Or
see
like
how,
who you like more, or like who you comment more,
But that's
like
not
whatever,
necessarily
you
the best
know?
way to spread.
Well,
a
same
news
with
headline.
the new Instagram algorithm. It's like, you know, I think they're still trying to figure out how to get things right. And whereas Twitter's been around so much longer, they've kind of figured out how to like you said, get it to the top and like get people really active in like the hashtag pack or like the news pack or like whatever it is, you know?
Instagram, more than any of the other companies, I've really enjoyed watching how quickly they roll stuff out.
Yeah, so quickly,
Let me
like
ask
overnight.
you something.
It's
Because I saw
crazy.
something only for a moment, and I told you about it, Jess, and then I never saw it again. So I was starting to wonder if it was just in my head.
What was it?
But no, it was a new Instagram function, and then it was just gone the next day. Do you remember this? So we did an Instagram snap here from in the studio.
Yeah.
And we went to the full 15 seconds, and then it rolled over into the next one, like Snapchat.
Oh, cool.
But
yeah,
then
that's
the next
so cool.
day, I was talking to you about it, and I was like, "Oh, we'll just do that." And I'm like, "Wait a minute, it's not doing it." So I almost wonder if somebody like flicked the switch too early, because I've heard of that a lot. There's a lot of that type of thing where Instagram has functionality, but they don't want to roll out too much at once to overwhelm the user. They have
Right.
they have a rollout schedule, so it might be a case where someone like rolled it out too quick.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because it was for sure there, and it makes
So you
sense
just mean
that
that you would keep holding it and it would just
just roll.
continue
It just you could film for 10 minutes if you wanted
Almost
to.
like
It would just turn
Snapchat, yeah.
into,
but
like,
it would all be like 1 minute little segments or whatever,
15-second little segments, right?
Yeah.
like it would actually separate it into like individual videos.
It was
kind of
exactly
thing.
like what Snapchat does.
Yeah.
And Facebook has a and Instagram, of course, has a reputation of gangsterizing Snapchat features, right?
Yeah, I can't. Yeah, you can't lie. Like, they stole so many other features. You know what I mean? From like face filters and like all these different things.
Did you
right?
ever hear this headline when they took the face filter thing? Was it the face filter thing or was it the story thing? I can't remember which one of the thefts we're talking about right now.
Yeah.
But they waited until the week when Snapchat went live or went public, because it would cost their stocks too much money for them to open up a legal dispute with Facebook.
Right.
So they waited until it was basically impossible for Snapchat to fight it. So it's like waiting till someone's got both their hands full and then mugging them, and it's just
Yeah.
like, what are you gonna do about it now?
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah,
just
like, you got me at my worst
that's
time.
corporate gangster.
That is pretty gangster.
And they just figured, hey, their stocks would drop if they sued Facebook right now in the first week, so now's the time to get them. And I'm just like, that's big billionaire corporate gangsterisms right there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
So yeah, nothing's off limits. Instagram
You gotta
might
love
just take
those like
anything from
legal
anybody.
loopholes, you know what I mean? Where you just figure out like, how can I screw this guy in the most legal way possible? Well, I'm just gonna get him at his worst time and like steal his idea,
because
but
it's
like
not
you can't do
illegal.
shit about it. Like,
In theory, it's not more illegal to be smart with your timing.
yeah, totally.
true.
No.
If you're going to steal something, and I don't mean from a person, I'm not talking to Home Alone, how to rob somebody. They basically Home Alone them.
Yeah, they did. They did.
When they're away for Christmas, you break in.
They waited till nobody was
bandits
around
them.
or could pay attention to the problem. That's
Wet
hilarious.
bandits.
Snakes? I don't know.
Or was it Sticky Bandits? Or was Sticky Bandits
it
in the
was-
second one?
Yeah, when he had like the sticky
That's
glove.
right.
It was just like,
That's right.
yeah, no, it was the wet bandits because they would clog, or I don't know. Yeah.
I think it was Wet Bandits in Home Alone 1 and then the Sticky Bandits in Home Alone 2 because he was working on his... Anyways, I'm sure that Zuckerberg uses these same metaphors.
Yeah.
That's what I'm getting at.
Probably. He's probably in his meetings like, hey, listen, have you seen Home Alone 2? So what we're going to do is
It's like
we're going to
it's like a
sticky
big-
bandit that guy. And I need you to literally go back to the
Yeah.
team and tell them that and figure out how we can do that legally.
There's a
so come
PowerPoint
back to me when
presentation
you're ready.
with a picture of the actor from Home Alone and then the Snapchat
Bart.
logo.
Yeah, like-
and it's just like, here's what we're going to do, guys. We're going to Sticky
I know.
Bandits, Snapchat.
No way. I mean, he's so rich. He could probably be like, listen, get Macaulay Culkin in here right now.
Get
We need to
Macaulay.
talk. We need to talk to him
We got him
about
on
how
speed,
this
we got him on
really
speed
went
dial
down.
from the last
like,
meeting, sir.
It's straight up, like, honestly, he could probably have the power to do that, I feel like.
One of the things that you said that I feel like if we don't touch back, because we often get so excited early on that we just move into like pure shit talk, was you mentioned that Lynn's self-made. And it's, do you have any interest in sharing any of your, like, you moved to Toronto and like built yourself your fucking career story?
Sure.
Even why
are people interested
why don't you
in
give
that?
us, yeah, for sure, because I think it's been a running theme, and we talked to Andy about that before. Andy was a small town guy, guy who moved up here, moved to Toronto, wanted to make it in the music industry and become like an A&R and a force to be reckoned with. And we talked a lot about that. That's a huge theme here. We gutted a part of our apartment and turned this podcast studio so that we could really seriously like engineer the life we want and like the destiny that we kind of want. And when you and I met and you started telling me that story, I was just like, you don't know me very well, but if you did, you would know that this is the shit I get off on, is like somebody putting it all on the line and going, fuck it, it's low odds, but someone's got to roll the dice, you know what I mean? And so, yeah, I would love for you to even just share some of that, because it's, anyways, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like, so I'm a Newfie, for those who don't know, from good old Newfoundland.
Whereabouts in Newfoundland?
Island girl. Grew up in St. John's, moved around a little bit, but, like, St. John's is, like, where I was born and raised.
Yeah.
So, you know, like it's weird, because, like, in Newfoundland, you would say, like, that's a city, but, like, here, they'd be like, no, this is a city. Like, that's a very small town.
There's
so,
levels
like...
to the city shit.
Exactly. There's levels to everything, right? So, like, I could say I'm from the city in Newfoundland, but, like, it's a town. You know, it's a very small town. But yeah, no, I moved here from Newfoundland like 8 years ago. And I'm very much a person who always like looks at the other side and says, like, I figure out, like, what are they doing to, like, get what they have, and, like, how can I do that in, like, my own way? So, like, when I got here, like you said, I was trying to get into the music industry, and I didn't really know, like, what I was going to do or how I was going to do it, because I had, like, no fucking skill set whatsoever. I couldn't edit a video. I couldn't play an instrument. Like, I was like, what the fuck am I going to do, man? But, like, I was very good at business, you know? So I actually did something similar to what you guys did, where I just created, like, an online blog, and I called it, like, the One Woman Show. So no one knew it was me. They just knew it was this person who had this, like, online brand. And then I just honestly started like posting like events and artists that I just liked and found myself. And then through that, I would just hit them up on Twitter or like tweet them and be like, oh, you're featured on my blog. And like so many people love that, because you know how many artists want to get on blogs or want to get features or whatever, right? So the fact I was kind of doing it for free created like this weird leverage where like then they'd be like, there was a
value gap, so you became more valuable in some ways than the artists you were trying to
like chase after.
Yeah,
because I was like, well, I have this platform, and like, you know, and it's really funny because I started working with like all these people like everywhere from the States, whatever, and I got this guy to make me like a song for the blog, and I like switched it to like Life of Lynn, and it was like an actual rap song, and it was like lifeoflynn.blogspot.com, and I was like, yeah, and like you would come on my website, it was the best, and like it would actually autoplay. It was like one of those old school blogs.
You still have it?
I literally was looking for it the other day, and I was like, where's this gold? Like, I need... It was so good. It was so good. Like, come on. You made up a rap about a blog. Like, you have serious skill set, dude. Come on. Like,
I love that.
So, yeah, I kind of built in this whole thing. And then, yeah, from there, artists started, like, hitting me up, being like, man, can you be my manager? And I was like... I don't know what that means.
As they do.
Like, I honestly, genuinely don't know what a manager does.
Yeah.
And then this one, like, rapper guy was like, man, I'll teach you. And I was like, cool. Like, I'm down with that. Like, teach me the ways. So he kind of, like, brought me into a lot of cool meetings. And, like, he was kind of leveling up himself, like, every day. And knew a lot of cool people. And took me to parties and stuff. And then from there, I just kind of started managing artists. And then I came to a point where I was like, I should probably like get some real knowledge. And then I went to school and I took like entertainment management. And then I started like networking with people like more within that industry. And then I just, you know what I mean? It kind of skyrocketed
Your whole
from
brain
there.
levels up once you start educating yourself.
And also surrounding yourself like with the people in your space, because I feel like there's a lot of people in the music industry who like think they know so much shit, but then behind closed doors there's so much you don't even know. Like I met so many artists where I was like, oh, like do you have like split sheets, like the basic stuff, and they were like, I don't even know what that is. And you're like, what? Like, come on.
You know, my life is I can relate so heavily to that, because I really felt like I spent a lot of time in the business, you know, chasing my heart, like really like feeling, you know, this is the thing I want to do. It's all the stuff that you see on American Idol and like X Factor. It's like, why do you want to do this? I couldn't dream of doing anything else. You know, it's like that.
Yeah.
Like, but
that like
at no point in that conversation
feeling.
does someone go, okay, let's talk about some of the things you should need to know that will be the baby steps of creating a living off of your art. What,
yeah.
You know, what are the ways to do that? What are some things you're going to need to know to even kind of move forward in that area? And so, yeah, I can definitely relate to that coming from that perspective. And once you inform yourself, then all of a sudden it's a whole paradigm shift where now you know a little bit of everything. What I love about your story is the beginning of it is something that just about everybody I know can relate to. So often when you hear an inspiring story, you're like, yeah, it's not really useful for me.
Yeah.
You know, when you watch that, what's that Jimmy Iovine documentary. Blew my mind. Blew my fucking mind.
He's incredible.
But it's not. There's aspects of it where like really quickly he's in the room with like Gwen Stefani, and you're like, well, that's. Like, some of that I can't relate to.
Yeah,
you know
totally.
what I mean? Like some of it, he moved really fast, and some of it I can't relate to. But your story in the beginning, I'm like, everybody I know is there or was there at one point where it's like you feel like you're on the outside looking in. You don't really have the contacts or the knowledge. What you really have is the desire to be in this position that's on the other side of this like, distance that you need to travel. And then, I mean, in our life, when I'm working on marketing strategies for comedians and other artists and producers, I haven't thought of this technique. And I make it my living to think of ways that you could create something out of nothing and like build value so that somebody can launch an idea of theirs or their music or their clothing brand or whatever their thing is, right?
Yeah.
And so when you told me that story, I was just like, how the fuck did I not think of that? Because in some ways I have, like lyricvids.com, there are some aspects that carry there where it's like the generic name that people can really like understand from a distance. Like you have some of the but that idea of being like, well, I could just go to my favorite shows and just go to them really well, and by that alone I will create momentum in my career. And it's just like, I think there's a lesson there. If you're a car person or if you're a hair person or a makeup person or you're a producer or a clothing person, I think there's a pattern there that you could study and potentially use to push your own thing forward.
Yeah, I would say if there's anything like inspiring that I like try and tell people is that like just like you said, it's like whatever you want to be, you have to be very specific about like what space you want to be in. Like you said, if you want to be in tech, be in tech. If you want to be in music, be in music. I always find a lot of people when I talk to them, they want to be doing like 12 things, and you're like, dude, fucking tunnel vision. Like pick one thing and like master that, and then like everything else will kind of like build up.
Yeah.
So like if there's anything inspiring, it's like figure out what space you want to be in, and then figure out a way to get in there. And like don't think it has to be stereotypical in the way of like, oh, I've got an intern for some guy and like pay my dues and like put in all this bullshit work. That's one way. So, and kudos to people who do that.
Yeah.
But like there are other ways.
And
you know
these
what
days,
I mean?
to be honest, the internship is harder. Like, let's say tomorrow, Jess, you were like, I want to work on like a comedy, like sketch TV show because that's kind of where I see myself getting in the future. It's not impossible that you would say that to be next year or, and it's like, yeah, one way is to try to intern, but there's a long lineup to get on the Comedy Central intern list or the Key and Peele reunion intern list. Like, that's very hard.
And it's the same thing. You have to like know somebody. You know what I mean?
Oh, 100%.
You have to like know the guy to intern for.
It becomes a list now. You're on a list. And anytime a list is involved, I'm not interested.
Same.
So the reason I get excited is it's like, in this example, it's like, well, you could easily become one of the voices talking about sketch comedy on the internet. There's not that many of them. We just made this up right now, but there's probably 3 of them. And now you are the second best of them. You know what I mean? And it's like, now when you go to apply to things, it's like, oh, by the way, I also run this thing. And it's like, I've heard of that. All my favorite comics try to get posted on that. It's like, that's a huge leg into literally anything you wanted to get into. And I think that's a really fucking cool lesson.
And like I tell people too, it's like, listen, if you're going to go intern for someone for like 20, 30 hours a week for free, why don't you just, like you said, put like 20, 30 hours a week into your Instagram or making a video. Like intern for yourself, man. Be your own intern. Like
so
build your own shit up, you know? Like honestly,
and
right?
You're the one thing I wanted to talk about this week. Jess and I co-directed the music video last week. Cool. And we don't always do that. Usually it's her because I'm on camera, or it's me because it's my client that she doesn't know very well. But it's an artist I signed that we're both really involved with. Megan Nora, lead single comes out August 31st. Drowning.
Plug.
And we co-directed it together. And it was really cool because, the preface is always, Jess was always creative. But I remember those moments of like giving her the camera the first time when we were in Cuba, and you kind of not knowing what to do with it. Like I remember that very vividly. And like you shot the video with your hands. I wasn't showing you how to hold it, but I remember you being very unsure, and you're just like, "Is it going to be stable?" And you didn't know. And then to be on set and there's choreography, and we're just handing the camera casually back and forth and shooting different aspects depending on our skill set. And it's like I watched you literally construct this like lane that you're in from scratch. Like brick by brick, and now you're just like casually being like, give me the camera, I shoot this stuff better. You know what I mean? And it's just like, that's badass. And it's very similar to what Lynn did and Andy and fucking Mike moving here from Montreal. If there's a theme to this podcast, it's really the like making something out of nothing.
Yeah, totally. Definitely.
I fuck with that.
So when you moved here from Nova Scotia, did you know that's what you wanted to do, or did you move here for other reasons?
Newfoundland. Very close.
Ooh,
Very close.
Please don't be racist on our podcast.
It happens all the time. It's okay.
So when you were in New Brunswick, Prince
okay.
Edward Island.
I'm like the worst Canadian. I literally know nothing about anything east or west. All I know is like center.
Well, now that they've got the cheap flights, Swoop Airlines, Swift Airline, I think it's Swoop. Have you heard about this from Hamilton? $100 or $200 flights. I think it's $100 flights to Halifax from Hamilton.
Oh yeah.
Well, also like
So it's like the new low cost airfare to the Maritime. So I want to go.
Weirdly enough, the little town that I like moved to when I was like 14 or 15, it's called Stephenville, and my mom lived there, and they have an airport, but it's only open in the summertime. It's
And
like,
do they fly like to Toronto?
but the best thing is before, like, it would only be like outgoing flights in the summer, or like flights from like Stephenville to St. John's, because it's like an 8-hour drive. You know what I mean? So it's like 1 hour flight, 8-hour drive.
It's 8-hour drive.
8-hour drive across the island. Yeah.
Wow.
So they have these like Newfoundland
Canada's so
flights.
big.
It's like so weird. So like now Porter actually flies. Like it's like, you know how you can get on that flight where it stops in Halifax, Ottawa, whatever. And now they actually go and fly directly into Stephenville, but it's
No
like an
way.
arm and a leg of cost, you know.
So when you're super ballin' though, I can picture you having like this like castle in Stephenville. And you just be like taking like private flights
Yeah.
out of the Stephenville airport.
like I can't lie, that would be my dream, is to
Yeah.
like roll up on my like old high school, like flying on a private jet into the like open the airport just for me. Like
Love it.
yeah, that'd be
Shut
pretty
down
badass.
the airport.
Yeah.
We don't have to shut down the airport budget
You
right
were
now.
asking me a question.
Yeah,
It's
and I
my bad.
interrupt
We
everything.
totally got
so when
sidetracked.
when you moved to Toronto originally, did you know that music was what you wanted to do?
Yeah, like I knew I wanted to be in the music industry, but like I said, I didn't play any instruments or anything.
Yeah.
But like when I was in Newfoundland, we were actually like, me and a couple of my friends were like promoting clubs and like selling club tickets
Sure.
from like 16. So I always like loved that like industry nightlife. Like I hung out with a lot of DJs. Like I really like was kind of in that world, just
That
in
was
a
my
different
second
way.
question too. Is like, is there much of like a music industry scene in Newfoundland?
Like, yes, like music is a huge part of our culture. Like Hey Rosetta came out of Newfoundland, Great Big
Yeah.
Sea. You know what I mean? There's a lot of like big people that come out of there, but I think it's really hard to like break from there. Like a lot of the artists I know, even like a guy named Bridges from Newfoundland, like I know him, and like I was at a show the other day. Like I went to support a friend, and I show up, and they're like, Bridges is playing, and I was like, from Newfoundland? And they were like, yeah, and like he had to like move here to kind of like break his career.
That's the thing. It's like, do you think that you could do the career that you're doing now there? Because I find that a lot of artists from elsewhere end up coming to Toronto to find management to do all these
Oh, like
things
hell
anyways.
no! Like
Yeah,
there's
so, like, you
there's like
couldn't-
I think there's I could probably name like 2 studios that even like exist in Newfoundland. There's not even like that like world kind of there. Like even though music is so a part of the culture, they don't really have like
It's more-
anything in
it's
that
like
way.
Musicians, there's a lot of musicians originate, I think, on the East Coast.
Yeah.
I don't think there's the infrastructure for like the music business. Even Toronto is light on that. Like you kind of need to, like I've been talking a lot about trying to get into the songwriting world, and pretty much everyone I talk to is like, great, love it. Go to Nashville. Great, love it. Go to LA. But you can't really do that here. And I'm like, really, Toronto?
You
Like
totally
top 10
can.
city in the world? Now you can, but what they mean is if you want to get to the top level,
top of
eventually
the
you need to
top.
go to that place.
Yeah, but like
you-
the cool thing about
that's
East Coast
Toronto,
though,
so.
like what I love about East Coast is the guys you can come to Toronto and like build yourself up, but then you can go back to the East Coast because think about it, there's nothing there, and like George Street has the most bars per square capita in the world.
Yep.
Nobody knows that either. So like celebrities and shit love coming there and partying.
I knew that.
Because not many people do, but it's sick to know because like you can go there and you can literally book yourself for like 3 nights back to back at like 3 different clubs, and people will come out every single night. And you could also, like you said, it's an 8-hour drive, so you could drive across the island and hit like 5 or 6 different towns
Yeah, I
and
had
like
a little tour booked
throw a
on
tour,
the
you
island.
know?
Would have been last year, maybe the year before, and I ultimately canceled it just because there was one issue with one promoter, and then at the same time somebody got stabbed at a TI show in Nova Scotia, and it wasn't the stabbing because I was a bit like, huh? But then I saw a comment on the post about the stabbing. It was like, well, that's a show in Nova Scotia. Everybody knows that's bound to happen. And I was like, I was already kind of on the fence, and I was just like, you know what? Maybe now's not the time to come
I'm
to and
good.
do this place because I got less security than TI has. And so,
I can't lie. I actually
stabbed.
had a really bad incident in Newfoundland with Machine Gun Kelly. A bunch of my girlfriends like had it out with his security. So like same thing, like it's a very small club, you know what I mean? But it's like packed out. So Machine Gun Kelly performs, everyone's hyped up afterwards. And like, you know, the VIP booth is like right there. Like you could touch it. It's not like in Toronto where like they would be so far up and above, like you couldn't get access. So he's right there, and like one of our girlfriends like walks up and she's like, hey, like can I get a photo? And then he just kind of like disses her away. And then this guy comes up and just like literally like facepalm pushes her back. And like Newfies are crazy. You can't do that. So all of a sudden like
And they're
one of
loyal
the
AF.
girls like throws a drink and they start throwing drinks and a huge fight breaks out, and it's like that's so easy to happen because like you said, there's no security, it's like a super small club, and like you know, you got to be really careful how you deal with like small towns like that, right?
I have a lot of stress revolving around live shows, because there's such a question mark. Like I've almost had like venue managers want to fight me. I've had promoters basically drop the ball on the show. I played a show in Illinois, and the promoter basically dropped the ball. Even though I was quite cool about the fact that he had dropped the ball, he was still kind of like, "You want to fight?" I'm like, it's such a thing where there's such an opportunity for there to be violence, drama, problems. So the idea of touring, like if I was Machine Gun Kelly, I would just want to be sitting in my mansion, and going to recording studios. And I love performing, fucking love it. It's the going on tour to a small town in Maritimes or in Indiana or in Kentucky, and then you're
well,
you're exposed to the elements of all the kinds of people that come through that kind of show.
Exactly, and just like that's what I was gonna say. It's like you know how to control yourself in those situations, but we got to worry about there's like 400 other people, and you don't know how they're gonna act, especially when they're hyped up on music they love. Like people start acting really weird in environments like that.
And emotions run. Like, I'm not even that famous. I'm not famous at all, but. I go to a place, remember New Mexico? I messaged you and I'm like, this promoter clearly thinks I'm a big deal and he feels a ways about it. And it was just like, it got weirder and weirder, and he's like, you're still going to perform, right? And there was nobody there. And I wasn't even making I only got my minimum payment because he didn't fucking do the show well or whatever. And I was being very cool, and he just got more intense. And I'm like, I think this is going to turn into something. Mm-hmm. I think he might have heard I'm a bigger deal than I am, maybe, because he just kept like throwing his resume at me, and he kept being like, I could feel this like weird bitterness, and I got in my car and just took off.
He's way too in his feelings about it.
It's like you see that, like you go to a place and someone goes like, you know, I toured for a while, and you're like, oh no.
You're like, oh.
He's gonna be one of these guys where it's just like, you know, I could be doing that too if I really wanted to, and it's just like, oh man, the bitterness, you can leave that at home, G. I don't come with any ego. I appreciate you booking me at all. Like, that's my whole attitude when I go into a city. I'm like, when I play Salt Lake City, I don't know how many fans I have here. Thank you for taking a risk on me. Well, that's and by the way, Salt Lake City was amazing. They were not a bad one. I just, like, I come in humbly. So when someone is in their feelings when you get there, I'm just like, it's going to be a long 24
You're
hours
like,
till I get to the next city.
And also there's like so many people who are like event promoters or like music executives that like wanted to be a superstar but like never made it, so now they're like in this role, and like you said, they get this like weird like I toured before, and it's like, who gives a fuck, dude? You're not the one booked right now. Like no, like why are you mentioning that?
And
like
the fact that you did is really cool. You can share war stories with me at the right time, not in a thirsty, bitter manner. You know
yeah, but not to be like weird about it.
Because like my thing is, I've always been very aware of like my age and where I am in the music business, because I'm still very much in the age of being range of being an artist, but that won't be forever. At a certain point I will turn 45 or 50 and I'll have to be thinking about that next stage, and you got to be self-aware and be like, cool, so that was my swing at the bat of being on camera. Now I'm too old to be on camera. Now I'm going to be the guy who sets up the camera or who books the person for the whatever the fucking metaphor you want to do it.
Yeah.
But you just need to be aware. It's like, that's math, fam. You know, Wayne Gretzky had to retire eventually. And if he spent the rest of his life being like, I used to play hockey. You guys know I used to play hockey. That would ruin the whole shit that you used to do.
It would. Like, dude, everyone knows.
We know.
We all know.
And if we don't know, let's say you aren't Wayne Gretzky. Let's just say you played, for 2 games. There's ways to tell people in a non-thirsty, gross manner. You know what I mean? Or you let other people tell people, because people will. If you're a hockey player, or let's say it's me. Let's be very specific. It's me and I'm 50. I don't have to walk in a room and be like, you guys know I used to open for Chris Brown? Like, no, that's the worst. Now you just you undid all the cool factor of what you just let someone else say it.
Yeah.
And by the way, if you have good homies, someone will fucking say it.
I'm so that person. Like, I'm always like, I have like, there's a lot of humble people that I like happen to know, and like I'm the same person. Like, I'll always be like, oh, I'm this person. I'm like, did you know they do this?
You have to.
Like, you have to, because it's like you said, it's like
fun.
That's their credibility. Brag them up a little bit, especially because it's weird when they do it themselves in a way.
One of my mentors, a guy named Dio Gibson from the group Art of Fresh, he put me onto this, and he's just like, there's certain things that I can't say to somebody. He's like, I need you to think to say them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's like, and then he started doing it for me too. I'd be in a conversation and they'd be like, and this is such Dio. Ilva just finished a 50-day U.S. tour? Mm-hmm. That would be really weird for me to say to somebody.
Yeah.
Because it sounds like, yeah, I'm touring. If that's really not that, if that's really something I do all the time, I wouldn't be bringing it up all the time. But so now I kind of need D.O. or someone to say that. And they go, oh, wow, that's very impressive. 50 dates is a lot of dates in a row. Oh, that must mean you're really like, how long were you on the road for? Oh, it's like it opens up the whole conversation. And I did the same thing for him. D.O. used to have a Guinness record, longest freestyle on the planet.
Wow.
That's a really impressive fact. Again, he can't the minute he says it, he's gross.
Yeah,
So
it's weird.
I've never heard him drop it ever at any party we're at. So I fucking tell people all the time.
It almost like devalues it in a way. Cause like it's like, well,
Yeah.
if you're that cool, why is like no one else saying it?
But I put my
You know?
I won't even say who, but I put one of my younger homies on it where I was like, listen, G, this is the game. I will tell people you're the greatest because I truly believe that you are.
Yeah.
But feel free to tell people whatever you think about me that they should know. If we're and by the way, I don't mean like to some girls at a party. I'm talking about we're talking to an A&R or a tour booker, and it's like I still want to feel cool and casual and be like, hey, I'm a headliner where I'm from, especially when you're overseas, right? Hey, I'm a headliner where I'm from. And then, Meyer or Graydon might be like, he's, Illy plays a lot of festivals, actually. So, oh, cool. What festivals? Boom, we've now navigated something that would have been weird for me to, you know what I mean?
Yeah, totally. I find that saying it yourself too almost seems like that's maybe all you have going on. Like, you know what I mean? 'Cause if you say it yourself, they're kind of like, oh, that's like the thing he wants to brag about. So he must not do stuff like that all the time.
Exactly.
It's just that one thing that he's kind of focused on and wants it. Whereas if somebody else says it about you, it could be like one of many things that this person has, you know?
And you got to be good at it. I play it off very good. I usually make a little joke about it where I'm like, or like when someone says like, oh, he played a festival with Chris
I love
Brown.
how you're giving away all your networking secrets.
But this is the beauty is you can give them away.
Yeah.
Because people don't internalize them and use them like that. How many times have I told people exactly where and how I went to book something, and then I go to that place metaphorically or physically in the case of like New School Rules, and there's one of the 600 people that were like, I'll see you there.
I don't mean stealing them so much. I mean like doing it. Like somebody might like see you do it and be like, I know what he's doing.
Also, like in this
I'll still
industry,
win.
I feel like everyone's very like a lot of people in the music industry are super egotistical. So like, a lot of people won't even say anything good about you anyway because they want good stuff said about them.
Yeah,
So they'll like wait for their moment. They won't won't have anything good to say about you, and it's just like, you know what I mean. They want that prize for themselves, right? So I feel like even though like a lot of people will be like, oh yeah, I'll have your back, like they won't say nice things. So like honestly, I like applaud that in a way because like I do that shit too, and like people really remember me for that of like saying something nice about them.
Yeah,
you know? Because
even
like a lot
if
of
you're
artists are
forcing
like,
it, it's like forced niceness is still niceness, and it
yeah,
still
it's
makes
still
people
niceness.
feel good. And
yeah, and
honest,
it still makes you like a good person. You
I'm
know?
talking about it very much from like the chess move angle because that's the part that intrigues me the most is like how can you use this tool to create movement. But to be honest, like there are a trillion cases where I do it for somebody for absolutely no reason, and all the times for someone like Tay or anybody like AAA, and I'm in a conversation. I'm like, this is the best producer in Canada. I get nothing for that.
Yeah.
I don't see him enough to expect that back. I'm just like, here's something I know. Shout outs are free. Cost me no money to plug you in right now.
what I'm saying,
and maybe
you know?
down the road, karmically, or it'll get around that I'm a good dude, or who knows what. But I have some level of faith that if I say those things when I mean them in those moments, that in the big picture is good for business.
That's what I'm saying. I'm saying like, you know, you should always do it like just because anyway. Because like you said, everyone should know that it comes off weird when you say it yourself. So it's like, why not just throw out that random comment? Like, what is it not gonna do any bad to you. It's not gonna backfire
And
on
the other
you.
experts,
like, you know?
they're gonna look at you like, I see what you did there.
Yeah.
I see you fucking ninja. I see
Yeah.
you pulled off that fucking move. And honestly, that's such a big part of it is, you know, 99% of the time that you're networking in any business or in life, you're talking to people that don't matter. And I don't mean don't matter at all. I mean, they don't matter in being able to move your thing forward in a massive way. These aren't 99% of the people you meet aren't gatekeepers and significant tastemakers in your lane. But what you need to do is develop good habits so that when you're in that 1% case, it's like a multiplier on your whole career. There's been several moments in my career where I doubled in size in a week because I did two things well in that week and I was ready to do them. You know, think Fresh Island Fest, like fucking CBC, all these things that I did in a short period of time that were just good habits that we developed, and eventually when the time was right, cracked a home run.
Yeah.
You know?
You know what? I have a hilarious story about niceness and how far it can fucking take you. So check this out. We go to
Lynn's story about niceness.
story of the day. Good at storytelling. Okay, so straight up. So I get free tickets to go to Kendrick. We show up and all like the Nike people are there and they're like so cool in their Nike gear and they're like, we got tickets, like we're in the front row, and I like am in the back quiet, not saying anything, and I'm like, I got free tickets from like Kendrick's producer, but like I'm not telling anybody that. Like I'm just here to enjoy the show, you know what I mean? So I'm just in the back quietly doing my thing, and we get to the front and they like escort all like the Nike people to their seats, and then like this whole like team or whatever, and then we like bypass them and we actually go to the front row, and I'm just like, peace, like later on, guys. Like I didn't say anything, you know what I mean? So just go to the front. And then we're in the front and we had a few extra seats. So I'm like, oh, let's go back and grab some of like the people we know and like try and sneak them in the front. So we end up sneaking in like this girl that I had just met at the concert and like an artist I know, T, Kitty shout out you. And so we sneak them both in. We're like, yeah, we're having a great time. And like, I had no idea who this girl was. I just thought she was like with the crew. Like I was just being super nice, super humble. And beers were like $18. It was like ridiculous. So everyone's like, I'm not drinking. I'm like, oh, whatever, guys. Like, fuck it. We got the tickets for free. This would have cost me an arm and a leg. I'll get everyone beers. Like, no problem. Like, let me buy some beers. Like, I'm feeling good. I'm like being nice to everyone. I'm being super sweet to this girl. And I'm like, I got you. Like, total sweetheart. We leave. I add her on Instagram. Next day, she's like, by the way, like, I'm actually the Nike rep and I'm going to send you like some gear. And then out of that, I get like the off-white Nike hoodie. And I'm like, get the fuck out of here. And it's like, I wasn't employing her to like get something. I had no idea who she was. I was just being a good person. You know what I mean? And it's like that shit literally goes so far. And sometimes, like you said, you don't know who gatekeepers are. And it's very important to like spread your niceness wherever you can because you have no idea how that's going to come back to you at the end of the day, you know?
And honestly, even the word nice, I feel like isn't even the right word because it is, and I totally agree.
Almost like kind.
Yeah, because the reason I say that is, to me, it's not even about being nice. Is like, in my head, there's this implication of like, I'm being nice. It's like a thing I'm gonna be nice to this person. I'm in a job interview, so I'll be nice. You know what I mean? But to me, you're just in a good place in life, and you're happy. And it's like, so when you meet somebody,
you're just spreading that.
You're like, hey, what's up? Is open, good energy. And I think that's so often what people want. Back in the day when I used to apply for jobs and do that in like the interview process and the first date process, it's so much about, it's all boils down to the same thing. Or when you're at this concert and you're accidentally meeting somebody who could be a big gatekeeper.
Just good energy.
The person is just like, does this person have like good energy? Is this somebody I would want to see again? Or see a lot if in case you're looking at like an investor, a business partner, a girlfriend, even a fan. The idea is it's like, is this somebody I would want to keep seeing? Mm-hmm. And probably the most important thing you could be is just be like centered, happy, doing cool shit, whatever that cool shit is for you. So if you love food, I would love to see how much you love food. You know what I mean? Like, where it's just like the guy cuts the sandwich slowly on his Instagram. He's like, fucking look at that, fucking. Because I hate food. But I would follow that guy.
I hate food.
Well, I just mean, I'm not a foodie. I'm not that dude. I'm
like,
not,
do you hate
I don't watch
food?
food. I don't watch Food Network.
He kind of hates food.
I'm a very picky eater.
Oh,
so I
okay,
love food.
okay.
I'll smoke weed and eat food, but I'm just not a foodie, you know? But I would
Yeah.
follow that guy on Instagram because it would be fun to watch him love the shit that he loves.
Yeah.
And it surprises me how few people have stumbled on that very simple tactic. I get a lot of, how many do you have so many followers? I don't even have that many followers. I have like 18,000. How do you get so, it's like, the answer is like the shit you like better.
Yeah.
In like, in a cooler way. And then it's honestly
totally.
80% of the battle.
Totally, you know? It's like even people on Instagram, like I see so many people on Instagram, they're like scrolling and looking at everything and not liking any photos. And I'm like, what is the fucking point? The app is literally built for you to drop a like. Like, drop a like, you hater. Like, you're looking at it. Like,
Drop a
just
like, you
it. Like,
hater.
what's wrong with you? Like,
Well,
how
that's why
hard
the
is it for you to
algorithm-
like that photo?
The
Like,
algorithm wins because those people get out of it. You get out of it what you
Yeah.
put into it. And
Yeah.
the algorithm is life.
those people are like bringing
Because
you to
get
the
out of it what you
top.
put in. I find if I'm bored or if I'm trying to generate a little like something, whether it's like sales in our lyric video business, just energy around our damaged goods, I'll go put one of my hats on, the lyricvids.com hat or the damaged goods pod hat, and I go out into the internet world and start interacting with people because that's where new people will come from. I think I would like to get away from phrasing things as a lot of people think that, because that's not how I want to say it. But I think there's something to consider about if you're trying to create an influx of people in your life, be it socially, professionally, new fans, which is, I think, for probably like a lot of my music industry people, it's like, well, one way to do it is to go out and reach out into the world to people. And be surprised what you get back. Gary Vee talks about, I can't remember what this was called, but the idea was to search the hashtag of the thing that is like centered to you the most. So maybe it's like hashtag lifestyle brand, if it's, or some, I would think that one maybe would work for you as a good example. Or like for me, hashtag songwriter, for example. So then,
Or like hashtag studio life or something, you know?
Studio life is a good
something
one.
like more
That
targeted
really,
where it's not
that really
like,
sums you up, right?
yeah, it's like 8 billion tags or
And
whatever.
then he recommended that you go to you search it and you go to the top ones or whatever, and there's like the 9 top ones, and he said interact with everyone and contribute genuine value. So if the person's like, what do you guys think of my new episode? Listen to the snippet and go, pretty dope. Sound quality's fucking good too. Because the person's going to be like, wow, that was useful. Thanks. And then essentially he suggested if you made a habit of doing that all the time, you just would be in that conversation. You just now inserted yourself into the conversation of the thing that you decided defines you. And whether you do that exact thing or you just internalize that idea, I think that concept can really kind of like get in your brain like an earworm and make you think about how you go about things differently, how you use your time differently to give you the thing that you want.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, it's like, just like we talked about, right? It's like putting yourself in the right spaces of what you're in. Like, you know, if I'm in the music industry, but I'm hanging out with like sports guys all day, like, are they essentially going to like help me break into new areas of like music? Like, maybe not, you know?
Yeah, totally.
Be aware, right?
Be aware. Yeah, totally.
Going back a little bit to our talk about like networking and business convos and strategies and stuff. Are you guys also like good or bad at learning people's names, at remembering people's names?
That's a really good question.
I know the answer
worst.
for you.
I'm the worst.
I'm the worst.
I'm also the worst.
I would
You're all the
never
worst.
ever forget your face. Like I see you one time, in 5 years I'll see you again, and I'll be like, I know you from somewhere. Like I for sure know you, but your name. No.
Yeah, I'm really bad. I sometimes, and this to me is like, there's no excuse for it, and it's rude and self-centered, and I need to work on it. I literally forget it the moment someone tells me.
Me too.
Like it's like I'm not taking the effort to you know what I mean, to remember it, because like literally I'll be like shaking their hand and they'll be like, oh, my name's Jane or whatever. I'll be like, oh cool, what do you do? And then as soon as I say what do you do, I'm thinking of like the next questions I'm gonna ask and stuff, and then I forgot Jane.
You have other priorities, and I think that's how I am too, because I value the connection, but I often think I'll get their name from socials or whatever. That's how I feel about everybody's name and phone number. I don't know anyone's last names. I don't know anybody's birthdays. I don't know, like, it's like when you get your cell phone, you stopped having to memorize directions to places. So I just no longer know that.
Yeah, exactly. It's like
That's
back in
now
the
out of my
day, we
mind.
would have like every phone number memorized,
And you
but
knew
now
the route to
you
your
don't,
grandma's
you
house,
know?
and you knew
Yeah.
the phone number for the movie store and the phone number for the laundromat. It's like, but now I don't know any of those.
I just get like weird because like I want it to be like a good first impression, I think. So I think I get in my head, and then they're like, "Oh, I'm Jane," and I'm like, "Hey, Jane," and I'm like kind of like you said, I just want to like have that good energy exchange.
Yeah.
So I get kind of in my head about what I'm gonna say next,
I
and
think
so I
me too,
almost like
yeah.
forget their name, not in like ignorance or like self-absorbance, but just
I hear
strictly in
you.
the fact that like I want it to be a good first experience. So I'm thinking more about like that, and I'm
Yeah.
already like ahead of the conversation,
You're-
which like you said, I should be
you're
like more
distracted.
present, right? And
Yeah.
like really be like Jane, like you
Yeah.
know, and like read it back to them,
you know
and
what my
maybe that'll
problem
like
is?
imprint it or something.
Yeah, that's what they say. Like I've read like the hints on how to remember people's names, and the one
say
thing
their
is,
name as many times as possible.
Yeah, the one thing is
Yeah.
just say it once. Just say it. Oh, Jane. Okay,
But I think
cool.
they said,
you know
I
what
think
mean?
someone said
Like-
if you say it 3 times, you'll remember it or something.
Yeah.
I've heard that too.
Like even if you're like, oh hey, your name's Jane, awesome. What do you do, Jane? Cool.
Yeah.
So do you live on the east side, Jane?
You sound
know what
a
I
little
mean?
serial killery though.
I know.
Yeah.
You know what's so randomly?
Jane.
I
What are you
used to
doing,
like
Jane?
tell people I was like a serial entrepreneur, and then like one time this guy was like, "So do you kill businesses?" And I was like,
Do you only?
I'm never saying that again.
Do you
That
only
sounds like
knock-
I like destroy. I like come in and like like destroy a business and like shut
You,
it
like, knock
down
off
and like
cereal brands.
Yeah, like one or the other. One or the other.
My mistake that I make is I repeatedly tell people, "Nice to meet you,"
Yes, I hate it
and
when
then
he
they
does
say,
this.
and then they say to me, "Hey, Illy,
met before."
We've met a few times."
Yeah,
Like it's happens.
he does it all the
This
time.
doesn't
and
happen
I said-
rarely. This
I'm
happens
like, just
probably-
Stop saying "nice to meet you." Just
Yeah,
say, "Oh, nice
just
to
I've
meet you."
never
gotten,
say
I've
that.
'Cause if
gotten
you
way
say-
better at it,
yeah.
but after 200 or 300 missed,
That's brutal.
like it happens a lot.
Yeah.
And here's the thing too. Sometimes someone will walk up to me and they're 7 feet tall, and I look at them and think, for sure I've never seen this guy. Like I think it to myself, for sure I've never seen this guy. Side note, because I think there's some value if you meet someone for the first time saying nice to meet you and you look them in their eyes instead of nice to see you, and they think, does he know if he's met me before? It's like, so there is some value in saying nice to meet you if you've never met them before. I believe that. So what happens
You should try like a new opener. Like it's like,
What do you got?
hey, how's it going?
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
oh, my
The
name's
value,
Jess. Hey,
I
Jess,
would
how's it
agree
going?
that the mistake outweighs
It
the
does.
value.
Oh, it does. And
so
that's
I
what
think
I'm
you
saying.
still need to stop
Sometimes
doing
they
it.
look
Yeah.
very different. He's got a big sailor beard. He's 7 feet tall with like purple dreadlocks. I go, nice to meet you. And he's just like, bro, I came to your show in San Diego last year. And it's like, oh, dude, my bad.
You're like, I'm
it's
so
the
sorry.
worst.
We talk on Facebook all the time.
Oh.
Yeah, I would say just try and swap it. You know what I mean? Instead of saying nice to
how's
meet
it-
you
it's
or
just
whatever,
it's
like
how's it
don't even,
going?
yeah,
What's
like you
good?
said, don't even say, just like cut it
what's
out
good?
altogether. You know?
Exactly.
You're right.
You've been slightly better lately.
Because then, if it really is your first time meeting them, I think it's more genuine and like real if you wait until the end to be like, it was a pleasure to meet you.
Wow, you're putting me on game right now. I agree.
He has done it at the end and been wrong too, though. So that's why I said say nice seeing you, because nice
that's
seeing you
hard,
could
that's
also
hard.
mean nice to meet
You know,
you.
I think
That's hard.
I think I just got to go with Lynn's. Where I go away from the nice. It's not nice. It's just all the niceties are gone. It's just like,
Yeah.
hey, how's it going?
Yeah, how's it
What's
going?
good?
Exactly.
You guys have a good
Yeah.
night. Just stick to
There's
that
just
stuff.
as much value in
Or
that.
like even at the end, like instead of being like pleasure to meet you, be like, I look forward to seeing you
Yeah,
again.
great chatting.
Yeah, that's a
or like
good
it was
one.
great chatting with you.
Yeah,
That's
great chatting
right?
with you. Or like look forward to seeing
really
you
enjoyed.
again.
I
You know?
really
'Cause it
enjoyed
gives them
this-
like a little
I really
excitement,
enjoyed
like
this moment that we just shared.
especially if
That's
it's
a
a
little serial
fan, because
killer.
like I feel like the fan would actually come and see you again. So to be like, I look forward to seeing you again, kind of like almost really does like resonate.
What if
you
I
know?
say it with like a Dracula accent? I can't do it.
I was like, are you gonna do
waiting
it?
Or you could do it. You used to be a vampire.
It was nice. I don't know.
Oh, that was pretty good. That was pretty good.
We've been watching this fun show on Netflix called like Dark Tourist or something.
Yeah.
But so basically, it's this like New Zealand documentarian who's like going around the world to like these like dark tourist destinations. So places that have like were like nuclear bombed.
But like suicide gardens in Japan and
He
shit.
goes to the suicide
yeah.
garden in Japan.
That's so creepy.
He goes
dark
to
tourists.
he goes to a place where you fire machine guns and bazookas, and he says, "I heard a rumor that you can shoot a cow." And he asks the guy, and he's in Kazakhstan, I believe. Yeah, it was. He goes, "Can I shoot a cow?" And the guy says, "Yeah, for $400, we go get you a cow." And so the guy says to the camera, "He's like, I don't want to shoot a cow, but let's find out if it's real." And spoiler alert, it's real. They
Very
bring the cow.
real.
So he goes right up to, he holds the gun up, and he goes, "Okay, I'm not going to do it." But the point is that it's like
You can.
on the record, you cannot shoot an animal in any of these places. But it's like he went the first place he went when he waved money. They're like, "We'll go get a cow for you immediately. We got cows on standby down the road."
Wow.
And with a bazooka. Think
I feel
about
like
that.
nowadays you can like pay for anything
With
you
a
want.
bazooka, shoot a cow with a bazooka. I eat meat all the
unreal.
time.
I would love to
love
shoot
meat.
something with a bazooka, but
Shoot
not
a cow with a bazooka is like serial killery, man.
you know what I'd like to
it would,
shoot?
Pretty
It would
serial killery.
explode.
I would like to shoot like a pile of garbage or like garbage bags with a bazooka.
I
Yeah.
would definitely shoot
That'd
a
be so
bazooka.
cool.
Nobody
And just
gets
see
hurt.
like almost like a fucking what are those things called? You like smack and the shit falls out of them. Oh my god.
Piñatas?
Pinata.
Yeah.
It's like a pinata but with
Flesh
garbage.
pinata.
Pinata bazooka.
Cows are basically flesh pinatas,
Creepy.
aren't they?
Oh, it's so creepy.
No,
No.
Pinata.
I like it. Poor cow.
Yeah, the poor cow. What did a cow ever do to you, man?
First of all, a cow would eat an Illy burger in a moment if it was for sale.
You think so?
And if he had opposable thumbs to be able to hold said burger.
I thought cows are herbivores.
Yeah, but I'm speaking like metaphorically. Like it's not they didn't choose to be herbivores. They're not like they didn't make like the moral decision to be vegetarians. They just are.
I'm just gonna say like Lady Gaga's famous quote, "Baby, they were born that way." You know, they can't help it.
I can't help it.
They can't help it. You know, like
Listen,
they're just born that
I was
way.
wondering who was going to quote Gaga today. Usually it's
me, it was
Usually
me.
it's me.
It's me.
I appreciate you taking that.
I had to take that moment. That was like the only moment I feel like I could ever insert a Gaga quote and it would make sense.
Speaking of taking a moment, and Gaga always kills every party I've ever been at. So let's talk about something negative for 1 second.
Oh no.
Here's the dark cloud.
No, it just feels weird not to say it. We talked about this for briefly, and I'm like, you can literally tag Damaged Goods Podcast on Instagram or Facebook, and it'll tell you we're based on the Danforth in Toronto. And the Danforth had a literal quote unquote mass shooting like 2 days ago. And to be honest, we were inside like 2 or 3 blocks away from it, didn't hear about it. And so when the first couple messages came, like, "Are you guys okay?" I was a little like, yeah, why did a guy get shot again? Because a guy gets shot on the Danforth all the time.
Yeah.
But you know the thing in Toronto is like 99% if it is the guy who they intended to shoot. There's very little random violence. Toronto's not a place that's known for random violence.
Correct,
It's usually
yeah.
someone shot somebody else. It doesn't mean it's okay, but I still think it's different than having a reputation for random shootings, you know?
Yeah, I don't really know what's going on with Toronto.
The point is that changed this
It's
week.
been weird this summer. I literally, I'm sure there's some like weird story behind why this is happening, but like even last summer, come on, there was like barely any crazy shit. And like the shit that did happen, it was like at a club, like there was a shooting, and it was like, yeah, okay.
Are
like,
going up year to year. We've been
like-
watching only because it's like, if this is one of my biggest phobias and like I'm seeing a reflection in the mirror. Jess is looking at gun numbers. But we've been paying attention all year. And to be honest, so the mass shooting is 15 people were shot, 2 died, 18-year-old girl and a 10-year-old girl. It kills me that they're like,
it's so hard.
it's like young women were like, it seems so like random that's who he went after. But I'm a little bit less scared of that because I don't believe tomorrow another random shooter is going to start walking to the city shooting. I get a little bit more concerned about the ones where we hear about there's like a gang-related or crime-related shooting in broad daylight where somebody walks up, shoots somebody else, and then just like walks away. There's been a few of those. And it's just like, that reminds me of like, and not to be elitist, but it reminds me of like a Chicago or Detroit news story
Yeah,
that I'm not used to
totally.
hearing here, where it's like shootings in broad daylight where they don't seem that worried that they're going to get caught.
I'm super confused how like they just came out with the so you probably shows you or something like that, but they came out with the statement saying that like our homicide rate has doubled New York's homicide rate, and guns are legal in the state. So like I just don't understand how this all calculates.
I don't know anything about it compared to New York because this is just for Toronto. But basically, I got into a bit of a debate online because a friend of mine, and he meant well, and I actually do agree with this point. He essentially was just like, I hate how everybody's making such a big deal out of this. There's gun violence in the hood every day and no one cares until it's on the Danforth type thing. And I was like, yes and no, because yes, I understand that is an issue where it's just like we only care when it's like right in our front yard, and if it's in other neighborhoods or whatever where you have blinders up, yes, that is an issue. However, I looked at the stats and I'm like, gun violence is going up no matter what type of gun violence it is. No matter what neighborhood, gun violence has gone up. I think it's like doubled
also,
since
like you
2014.
And that's not that long ago.
It's so different though, like you said, when it's like gang related, because you're like, okay, that calculates. It was gang related. This is why this happened. Shots were fired. Okay, it all has like a calculated response. But for something like this, it's like now a little girl has died, and for what? Like it doesn't add up. So I think it concerns people more. And like 15 people, that's a lot.
This one is
It's
interesting
a lot.
because his family immediately commented and his friends immediately, like, there's a bunch of interviews with his friends and they're all like, what the fuck?
What?
Yeah.
So was he on drugs?
No, so his mom and dad did say that he struggled with, and I don't want to paraphrase, but psychosis or something his whole life, but that they're shocked that it ended this way, but that he's always struggled with something. That he's been resistant.
So they're basically saying it was a
Therapy
mental
hasn't
health
helped, drugs
thing.
hasn't really helped, but we're traumatized to hear that this is how it ended. But the point I'm making is, and this is worth mentioning because his last name is Hussein. I don't know what part of the world he's from, but he's not a terrorist.
No,
his friends
no,
and
it wasn't
family
that.
are like, we don't know what happened. He was just at home the other day and he seemed fine. Because on Twitter everyone's saying he's white, and the only reason that this matters is because often in the U.S. they immediately jump to like terrorist attack, ISIS, and so Toronto, I believe, got a pretty good.
You have to keep in mind the amount of brown people from all over the world that are in Toronto.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
Not
We're the
all of
most
them are terrorists.
multicultural.
Sometimes a brown person will have mental health
of course.
issues, or you know what I mean.
The vast
Yeah.
majority of people from that part of the world are not terrorists. Like
Yeah.
the 99 percentile are not.
Yeah.
But all I'm saying is that it easily in any other city, I think you would have seen the like, oh my God, look at his name.
Yeah.
It's probably a political
They would
statement.
just jump to that
You would jump to it,
conclusion.
and I didn't hear any of that.
I think I heard it for like a second, and then it just everyone like
There's always a couple
smothered
dummies.
that.
I'm not saying there's nobody in
Yeah,
Toronto.
everyone just smothered it quickly though, because like you said, it's like this clearly wasn't that type of situation.
Yeah, we're pretty good in Toronto for that. I do find that when I go back home to visit and stuff like that, I hear some
course.
racist mumbling.
I think
Yeah.
a huge part of it is
about how
being
Toronto is
exposed.
unsafe because we're letting in too many Syrians.
Well,
and,
I mean,
like, all
people
these
always
things.
forget that like we're the most multicultural city in Canada.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Even before
we thrive on that, right?
the Syrian refugees. Like we've always been.
Way before that, we were still
there's
super
economic
multicultural.
reasons for the huge immigration. We do that for a reason, because you need an influx of population to stimulate economic growth, and countries like Canada were slowing down and having less babies than we were in the past. And so it's just, there really is a situation where some people don't have the information. I don't want to say they're not smart enough. I think in some cases that's probably true, but in other cases no one sat down and explained. Some of these things are like, this is bare minimum. We have to let people in, and there's also really smart reasons why you can't choose that based on what country they're from.
Yeah.
You have to have some level of freedom and let the market regulate. And if people from the certain part of the world want to come to Canada because that's where their relatives are, then it's in our best interest to let that happen.
I feel like that speaks volumes about that person, though. Like, that's just pure ignorance. Like, you can't jump to that conclusion because, like you said, nowadays, mental health is such a real thing.
Yeah.
And, like, you just don't know anymore. Like, he could have been bullied and it could have triggered him. Like, we have no idea.
There's 1,000
you know what I mean?
things that have nothing to do with his last name.
Yeah, 100%.
Especially since he lives in the same city as or a country or maybe not city, because Canada and Toronto isn't really a haven where you see a lot of this, but he lives in the same North America as so many other mass shooters and experiences the same stimuli that they all experience and the same mental health issues that they all experience, and the fact that his last name is Hussein is really not relevant to his mental state, which is obvious to us, but honestly I think for many people it's not obvious.
Here's a scary gun statistic for you. I think I'm reading this right. It looks like the percentage of shootings that resulted in death in 2017 to 2018 is 71%.
Wow.
It's a 71% success rate with gun shootings.
Here's what I'm proud to say. The gangsters in Toronto are accurate. It's important. we don't want them missing.
Wow.
Are you making a joke right now?
Wow. I was like, wow, you just took that and really turned with it.
Well, I'm just saying, like, maybe LA, they run with like a measly 45%. It's like, step your aim up, LA.
Too soon.
No. Well,
Too soon.
That's why I said gangsters. That's why I specifically said gangsters, because I was trying to dance around the mass shooting situation.
I'm sure that hit home for somebody. Like,
My bad. Yeah. That is interesting.
Yeah.
But that's really wild to me. I don't know. It's so crazy because, like, even someone told me a story the other day about how they were chased down Yonge and Dundas by like a big black SUV. It was like this very pretty girl I know, and she's like, yeah, I was chased down. Like they catcalled her from the vehicle, and she looked over and kind of noticed it was like 5 guys in the car, and she was like, I gotta get out of here. So she turned around and started running, and one of the guys got out of the car and chased her for like 5 blocks.
That's
and like luckily
nightmare.
she's like very fit, you know. And to me, it kind of really shook me to the bone because, like you said, I've lived here for 8 years. I was a part of the Eaton Center shooting, unfortunately. But
really?
like, I've never seen anything like crazy like that happen. So I guess I'm kind of like naive in that way where I think like this can't be real, you know, but like it very much is. So I don't know, it's become like a little bit of a weird city now, like in that sense.
I do feel weird about it. And I'm born in Toronto. I spent a lot of time in Barrie. We came back. I went over to Europe and I came back. And then like, you know, I leave, I come back. Like, to me, I always come back to Toronto. But, you know, I've said to Jess a couple of times, I have a threshold, and we're not there yet, but I have a threshold where if this becomes a dangerous city that people are talking about, like, wow, look how dangerous Toronto is. I don't know that I want to like go down with the ship and be here.
Same.
That while like guns are ringing off on street corners, and I need to be worried about that, and I need to have my headphones out just in case. Got to keep my ears open in case someone's doing something crazy. Well,
That's
the minute
what I mean,
I need
you
to
know?
think like that. We're gonna really talk about this studio existing outside of the Toronto city. I mean, I'm happy to be here right now, and be a positive force. And we speak loudly and exhaustively about being anti-gun and anti-violence, and we try to be that positive force for the city.
It's
But
almost
I have a
created like
threshold.
some traumas that like never existed for me, you know? Like I never had a fear of being out at 3 a.m. by myself until I heard that story. I never had a fear of being shot by a gun until all of a sudden now like 300 people have died this summer, and it's like, are you kidding me? Like, it's insane, you know? It really just kind of like does, like you said, kind of make you evaluate like how
All those
much more
positive
can I
things we
take?
talked about, right? Where it's like, hey, I'm being my best life, and I'm being my best self, and choosing my life, and making all these amazing decisions, and I'm building great habits. So when the time is right, I'm crashed. And it's just like, but also someone out here with a gun. It's like, whoa, I ain't trying to
And no
fuck around.
offense, but like that's why I don't live in LA. Like, don't you think I'd want to live in a climate where it's 25 degrees all fucking year? Hell yeah, I would. Why don't I live in LA? Because everyone has a fucking gun, and I'm not about that shit. I don't want to be in that type of. LA is great, but I'm just saying, as an example, like in the States, it's very like legalized, you know. So it almost kind of creates that barrier where I'm like, I love to live in Canada. Like that's something I like appreciate about the country. And now I'm kind of like,
felt a little bit like Canada to me. Like I would be surprised to see a gun in Hollywood.
Okay, bad example. New York. New York's a better example.
Sure. But
I'm just saying, you know what I mean? It's like you kind of have that
movies.
like edge when you're there, right? Where you're like, that could happen.
You definitely have an edge. And when somebody is like talking shit, I'm way more aware of like, it could escalate even further than if I was back home.
Yeah. And here you don't really think about that. Like you said, if someone's like, want to fight, you're like, this is going to be a scrap. But like in the States, you're kind of like, I could die now.
I didn't used to think about
Yeah, no.
I didn't used to, and now I kind of do. And I think that like does
it's
freak
distracting.
me out a little.
And, I think my whole prism of life and my whole like mission statement and like the DNA of my life is about positive moments and like spending my time doing the things I love to do that bring me joy and fulfill me and the people around me. It's like, so that's like that's the dot in the middle of the bullseye of the
I'm with you on that.
You know what I mean? And so everything else builds out from that. That's why I do what I do for a living, because it's me spending the most time doing. That's why 30% of our home is dedicated to this podcast, because we even allocate our home that way. It's like what will bring us the most joy out of our square footage.
Yeah.
We build everything back from that. Again, now insert a guy with a gun. I'm like, you're going to fuck up all this cool shit I came up with.
Yeah.
What one bad decision, I bump into the wrong guy? Because I'm a sarcastic motherfucker. What happens if I go like, fuck out of here to the wrong guy? I might do that. I don't do that regularly, but it's not impossible that at the wrong time I bump into a dude, I'm like, get the fuck. Like, I could. And now I'm dead. It's just like, no, where can I go with this? Is there a place nearby I can go that doesn't happen? Oh, everywhere else? Oh, okay.
Gotcha.
All
Sign
of
me
the other
up.
places, I'm not gonna. Oh, okay. That's good to know.
Yeah.
Yeah, one thing that I always think about when we talk about this is when, the whole Trump thing went down in the States, and then all of our US people are being like, it's none of your business anyway. It's like, you guys mind your own political business. And
Say it. I know what you're saying, and I agree so much.
It is our business because all of the guns that are here are from the States.
Yeah.
The illegal
So
ones. We have legal guns too, but the illegal ones are coming
That's
into
what I mean.
the US.
The illegal guns are from the States. So it's like, if you want us to keep our nose out of politics, then it's like, then figure that out.
And also,
we're directly
like,
affected.
get the fuck out of here. We're attached to you. Everything that affects you affects us. Are you dumb?
The
like, what do you
border
mean?
is not
like,
real. Like, it's real enough, and I respect
it's just an invisible
but
line,
it's not
man.
real. What
Like,
is
it's an
real? The
invisible
attachment
line.
is more real than the dotted line on it is.
Yeah.
So any problem you have, we will have. That imaginary line is not going to keep your problems out of our problems.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if our neighbor, there was no wall here, and our neighbor had some bullshit going on, we can't be like, well, technically that's their apartment. No, we're fucking getting all the bullshit. All the smoke's coming over. You know what I mean? We can
And
hear
also
them
another
arguing.
thing I find like the US people always say is like, oh, well, they're strapping down at the border. Yeah, they're strapping down from us going into the States,
worst,
but they don't care about who's coming into Canada. That doesn't affect them.
No,
so like
it's true.
they're not really cracking down on like that opposite aspect,
They
right?
might be, but we have no reason to believe it. I haven't heard anything about that.
No, we're too chill up
With
here.
the whole trade thing and with the intensity, I wouldn't be surprised if they maybe escalated a little bit. But yeah, I don't know. I haven't heard that. You don't hear a lot about how Canadian Border Patrol is like intense.
Yeah, exactly. It's more so the
That'd be a funny
US side,
Canadian
right?
sitcom, Canadian Border Patrol.
Yeah, that would probably be hilarious.
Who would star in it?
feel
Jerry
like
D.
that would-
Jerry D's got to go somewhere. I think Mr. D's done.
I feel like that could
Rick
only be a
Moranis around?
comedy.
Rick Moranis. Rick Moranis
Yes.
in Canadian Border
Perfect
Patrol.
candidate. Perfect candidate.
I love it.
I feel like it could only be a comedy though. Like it could not be like anything
it would
like
also
intense.
Be it would also be a bad comedy.
Yeah.
Let me be very specific.
like
It'd
a
be
horrible
Is
comedy.
Rick Moranis
It's like
Canadian?
Yeah, he is.
Yeah, yeah.
It's like I'm talking corner gas at best.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
Like,
what
in
I
terms of
mean.
quality.
Because like when you watch like U.S. Border Patrol and it's super scary and they're like tasering and like taking people down, it's like really intense, like
Or
high
maybe
violence.
It's the guy from Corner Gas.
Be like the opposite of that.
He's kind of he's kind of the Canadian Kevin Smith.
I don't know corner gas.
You don't know.
Like I know
Corner
what
Gas?
it is, but I would.
He's just
Never
kind of like
seen it.
a bumbly like fat white guy. Kevin James. Think like King
He's
of
got
Queens
like
Kevin
a
James,
Canadian
but like
accent.
Canadian Kevin James. Yeah.
All right.
So that's my sitcom idea for the day. Ill Vibes sitcom idea of the day.
So my mom came to visit a couple weeks ago, and she took the GO train. Speaking of Toronto tings.
Ooh.
She said that when she was sitting on the GO train, she had her feet up on the seat across from her because there was like nobody on there, and she heard an announcement that was like, "We will fine you $50 for having your seat up or your feet up on the seats, or for having your bag on a seat."
Life in the fast
$50. That's
I do it all the time.
Why?
I do both.
I do both all the time.
Is that like a cleaning fee? Like the thing that Uber has? Like if you throw up in an Uber, we will charge you $65. It's like the same
price?
thing. Like I think it's like $65.
That's
So I feel like
that's reasonable.
yeah, like that's pretty good actually.
I would have thought it would have been more than that.
Well, because like they have to pay like a cleaning company. I feel like that's what the GO train like stole it from Uber, and they're like, you know what? Uber has a cleaning fee. We're putting in a cleaning
$65
fee.
is exactly how much money you'd have to pay me to clean up puke. Like any less than that, I wouldn't do it.
I would. You'd pay me more.
But if right now, let's say, let's
Oh,
say,
you have to
let's
pay
say
me,
you
like,
puke in the
$200.
bathroom, and I'm like, you gotta clean it, Lynn. She's like, I'll give you $65 if you clean it. I'd be like, you know what? For $65, I'll clean it.
Imagine her just being like, "I'll give you $65."
That would
to
be
clean
so G. She's reaching her pocket. She's like, I got $65. I'll give you the $65 for you to clean it. I'm like, oh, you know what? I'll take it.
I can't lie. My stepdad's like that. He like buys everything he wants. Like anytime he fucks
amazing.
up, like I have like my first ever like my own dog like that I
Is his name
got.
Len?
No, Patty.
Oh, okay.
Good old Patty, Newfie Patty. And like if you heard him talk, you'd be like, what is this guy talking about right now? Like literally,
His name
what are
is Patty.
you saying?
Is it Patty Banks?
Patty Bennett.
Oh, is
Yeah.
your real last
Patty
name
Bennett.
Banks or no?
No.
This is your like social media.
Yeah, I like this artist gave it to me. Like my first ever artist I managed gave it to me, and I made it my social media handle. And literally,
I thought it might
it's
be like a
so
nom de plume.
weird. Like every time I meet someone, they're like Lynn Banks. Like they remember me as that.
Yeah,
like when I
it's a
say
catchy
Lynn, they're
name.
like, "What is your name?" And I'm like,
Lynn Banks. It's like pop pop.
It's got like a ring. You know what I mean? It's like a good like a little alias. Like Lynn is my actual name, but like Banks is not my real last name. But like straight up, my stepdad's like that. He'll just buy anything. He'll just buy his like anything he like needs that he can't get. He'll just like buy it. You know, like one time he fucked up, and like my mom was like, "You two go for a drive and sort it out." And then we go for a drive, and he's like, "What will solve this?" And I'm like, "I don't know." And then we're like driving, and we see this girl, and she has this adorable puppy, and I'm like, "A puppy will solve this." And we literally pulled over, and I'm not kidding. We still have that dog. Her name's Maggie.
That is insane.
He bought it. He was like, "How much is the dog?" And she was like, "It's not for sale. I just got him. He's a puppy." Like
He's like, "How much?"
straight up, he was like, "Listen, everything's for sale."
In every movie I've ever seen, that person raises like a shitty child, but you're pretty cool.
Thanks, man. I like took that from him. I was like, anything can be bought,
Wow.
which
That's a great
made
lesson
me
for today.
exactly trigger him in my
kids.
mind when you said that.
Something to keep in mind. Anything can be bought.
Straight up. Straight up.
Anyways, bringing up the GO train thing, I want to tell you guys some more laws that I looked into, Ontario laws that are interesting that you may or may not know.
I'll tell you if I've broken them ever or recently.
Okay, well, I'll give you the first one: swearing in public parks.
Oh, I do that regularly.
What?
It's actually one of
We've
my
shot
favorite
so
things.
many
to do.
rap videos in public parks, definitely.
I would love to see that go down. Like you two are in the park, like smoking a joint, cursing, and all of a sudden a police officer comes up and he's like, "That's a violation of the park."
It is park violation.
Yeah, not the joint, just the swearing.
Yeah, just
Both are technically.
Yeah, no, yeah, the joint would be too.
Yeah.
I also went to a wine tasting the other night, and the hosts that were giving the wine tasting were kind of giving us some like trivia and cool facts, and they said that a lot of the Ontario wine laws are still from Prohibition. So, for example, when you're a wine manufacturer, you could, I forget what the number was, and if there's wine connoisseurs, I'm probably gonna get this wrong, but you can only like hold like 100 liters of wine in your warehouse or whatever, which is like a very small amount. That's like, how much is like a bottle of wine?
2 liters probably.
Yeah. So like
50 bottles.
So that means you need to make 50, sell them. Make 50, sell them. You're not allowed to ever hold any more than that, which is ridiculous.
Or is that like probably,
That sounds
per
ridiculous.
kind of wine too?
I'm not sure what
Because a store would
specifics
probably have
are.
50 bottles of each kind of wine in their storeroom. You know what I mean?
I'm also
Yeah,
surprised.
no, a store is allowed. Like
you
a
mean a-
wine rack or an LCBO is allowed. But if you're a wine manufacturer, if you have a vineyard and you're making wine, you're not allowed to hold any more than this amount.
So they have to set it up essentially that it's just always moving.
It's just like, yeah, it's always fresh,
You're not
always
sitting on
moving.
it.
But I thought it was
Wow.
like
Yeah,
better
that'd
if it
be
was like
stressful.
aged.
Yeah, no, I think I don't know. It's something weird. Maybe they have to ship it somewhere else. Like I don't know, but I know that it was something like you can't hold over a certain amount
Wow.
because of fucking
I'm so
prohibition.
shocked. There's
You've
so
been
many
doing a lot of, like, wine tours
winos.
and stuff lately. You wino.
I know.
I can't believe no one's
Summer.
like challenged that like update. Like, you know what I mean? Like the wine people. Like, I don't. Like,
There are
I don't
so
know
many
anything
laws
about
like that,
wine,
and
but like,
Man, I'm gonna say it. I've been saying it. I'm gonna keep repeating it. It's like it's common sense. Everybody agrees that outdated laws that are stupid should just all be updated. We could just update them all at once. Like
Yeah,
that's
like, why can't we
stupid.
update
Spend
them?
one day and
Let's
go through
stupid.
them.
Let's
Yeah.
update. Let's get all of our socio-economic like university professors to agree on which of these laws are obviously super outdated and are helping nobody.
Totally.
And then just get rid of them. But it's so weird to me that like I'm not a stupid person. It's so weird to me to think that like that's an easy, obvious thing we should do. And then you say that to any actual like educated person, they're like, well, that's not how things go. Like
There's
this
a pro-
easy,
there's a
obvious
process.
thing that should just make everything
Is there
easier
so much
and better.
red tape that because it's a stupid law, it's almost not worth doing because
Yeah,
it's just a
so much
stupid little
time.
You know
law?
what?
wasted.
No, I think it's more about setting the precedent that they could change that many laws at once fast. They drag
wanna do that,
their
yeah.
feet so that nobody can make them change a bunch of laws at once.
Yeah.
If you want a lot of change, well, you don't have to wait. We've never changed more than 6 laws a year.
Yeah.
So it's like you want to change 18 laws? See you in 3 years. It's just like this. It's
yeah,
like,
because it
kinda-
opens that whole door of
it
being like,
slows
now we
things
can
down,
change all the
it
laws.
keeps them in power. And I'm not even a conspiracy theorist. I think it's just obvious that it's like, to be honest, it's everybody's job's that way. If someone goes, hey, Jess, can you sort all the files in the cabinet today? And you're like, well, I've always taken me 2 days to do in the past. If I do it today in 1 day, every time in the future, you're going to expect I can do that in just 1
Exactly.
day. That's basic thinking that
Setting the
everybody's
bar,
done.
yeah.
You know, everybody's thought of this at some point. The government, as dumb as they are, they've thought of this.
They have.
Here's another one, and it actually seems silly at first, but it actually is a good law, and I think they should keep it.
Okay.
Or maybe just change it a little bit. But is
By the
that
way, the last law, I have not broken that law.
the making 100 liters of wine. It's illegal to have more than 2 garage sales per year, like yard sales.
I have broken that law.
That does make sense though, because you would just be like a market on your front lawn if everyone
All
was allowed
day.
to do that.
Yeah. Everyone have their own pop-up
My
shop.
childhood best friend. This is a funny story. I wouldn't have thought
Nobody
about it. If you
would
did-
buy a business because you could just run a business on
You
your
just
front
run it
lawn.
on your
If you
lawn,
didn't say
straight
it-
up.
If you didn't say that, listen to this. My childhood best friend Tim, his dad got stopped by the city for running weekly garage sales.
Oh, hilarious.
They stopped him, and then he did it again, and they gave him a huge fine. So what he started doing was renting his neighbors' driveways. And so he basically worked up and down that section of the street
What a
where you would know
hustler.
it's
Did he
that
buy
same-
antiques? Like, did he?
No,
What was he selling?
He was, first of all, he was an inventor who invented digital cash registers. So he was like quite rich off of just that one invention. No, it was the security system in digital cash registers. And so he would just do these garage sales kind of as like a stay busy.
It was like his hobby.
It was like a hustle slash hobby, you know what I mean? But it was more about, he was just very good at doing eBay before eBay. He found things that were quite cheap that you could buy from like China or something, or they were off a truck because they were kind of broken, but not enough. He just was very good at that value gap thing. It's worth $30. When you're charging $6, I'll take all of them. And he would sell them for a year on these driveways. And I remember Tim being like, the city of Barrie comes here every weekend now because my dad's like on their radars being like the garage sale hustler out here.
And is that loophole?
Yep.
Like, does it work? Like,
Yeah,
if
because
you sell it on other people's driveways?
It's harder for. I mean, I
Yeah.
think if you had
'Cause it's
gone
like property,
too
right?
far,
Yeah.
I think they might have like said you're breaking some rule still. But I think he was polite enough about it that he kind of like it kind of kept him just outside their jurisdiction, so to speak. Yeah. Shout out Tim's dad. He's probably still doing it these days, but
That's hilarious.
Who knows? Who knows?
I believe that I probably have broken this because my mom and dad did do garage sales a lot when I was young.
we did them a lot.
I would say
as well.
3 in 1 year might be my most.
Yeah, I think we did probably like 1 or 2 a summer, spring, summer.
Okay.
I like literally was just like getting rid of a bunch of stuff because like I'm a super minimalist. Like I hate having too much stuff. It starts giving me like anxiety. I'm like, there's too much shit. Like I need to get rid of this. And then I was like, yeah, my mom was like, yeah, have a garage sale. And I literally feel like my landlord has like enabled us from like having a garage sale because like it's all like rocks in front of our property. It's not like a lawn or like anything. He literally like installed rocks. So I'm like, how the fuck could I have a garage sale? Like I'm supposed to like lay my shit on rocks? Like that doesn't
just
work.
seems so
You
ghetto.
know? It's so ghetto. So ghetto. So I feel like I can't even break that law because he's just
He just
I
buns
mean, we
it.
couldn't do it here.
These
We're
days-
in an
Buns it,
apartment.
These days we just
exactly,
bun stuff.
Buns is
Buns
the new
everything.
garage sale for sure.
It is, yeah.
Digital
And there's no
garage
laws
sale.
around that yet. So
Yeah, I don't think they ever could because
No.
it's really
it's free exchange
Trust me,
shit,
the
right?
big if barter gets too big and it becomes a problem for government via taxation, for example, or corporate interests, I would not be surprised if they...
Like what kind of rule? What could they say that you can't?
They might just be able to. They might have to say that barter's over a certain value, you have to pay the tax on it still or something. I could see. I'm not saying, but if it got too big, or it becomes like the huge way people are exchanging, it's not impossible. Look what Uber
Or
did.
like maybe there has to be like
if Buns gets to Uber level. Oh, for sure, they input some kind of thing because they're losing millions at that point. You know,
I was gonna say maybe they'll come in with like some law where like you have to sign a written agreement saying that like you give this person this and you give that person that and there's no going back on it or some weird shit like that because it's like a car, right? Let's say if my parents want to give me a
from a legal
car.
aspect, I hadn't even thought of that. They might pass a law saying that certain things would be deemed as an agreement.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? They
Some sort of weird regulation about that.
Direct message agreements are now blah blah blah. I could see that being a thing too. If Buns ever gets to Uber level, they'll have to do something because it's not small.
But is Buns not at Uber level right now?
No, it's not.
I feel like Buns home zone is like 70K deep or something.
Uber just passed
That's
10
still not
billion
Uber level, though.
rides.
10 billion.
10
wow.
billion.
Okay. Yeah. Never
so
mind.
it's a Buns
I
is much
retract that
smaller.
statement.
if Buns got to a point where they had done 10 billion trades, it would be affecting global economy. And I think I'm not saying they should tax it, et cetera, but I wouldn't be surprised if they did.
You know what I'd be really interested to know though? Because like there's Buns, every type of Buns group. There's like Buns home zone, Buns trading zone, Buns wedding zone, Buns music zone.
Yep.
So I'd be interested to know how many like people collectively they have. Oh, like because each group is like 70K.
I don't know
80K.
if anybody knows. Does anybody know?
I would like love to know. I think that'd be such an interesting
Because
stat.
I believe, and there's no way to know this, I'm completely making this up, but the Buns company is probably worth nothing. Well, it's worth something.
Well,
like,
yeah,
like
like,
the
what
name,
are you worth?
Like the name is worth something because if you were an app developer, could see you like buying the name to launch this into something. So I think the name's probably worth $10,000, let's say.
Okay, there
But that's
was
it.
one thing
I
that
think
they
the
did
company's
get in
probably
trouble
worth
for,
nothing.
though. There was
they got?
one thing that they actually did get in trouble for, and it was the city. I think they fined them, or like I can't remember what happened, but the city gave them shit because they went around like Toronto and they spray painted like Buns trade zone, so you could be like, meet me at this zone and like trade in this
That's
zone. You know what I
hilarious,
mean?
yeah.
And they got in trouble for that because
Yeah,
the city was like,
that's
you
just-
can't
Yeah,
spray
no
paint
company
on our
can do that.
sidewalk.
No, but you know what? A lot of that's not exclusive to them in terms of like being a slightly illegal guerrilla campaign. A lot of companies will do that to kind of get word of mouth going. So that's
Yeah.
actually kind of dope. It's like,
I thought it was really cool.
Yeah, for sure.
They moved on.
Sorry, I was a little bit distracted because I was looking up to see how many members Buns Trading Zone had, and for some reason I can't find the original zone. I can only find like sub zones. But anyways, did you guys mention that like we don't see cabs anywhere anymore? Because I was just talking
no, I
about
see
this with
cabs
friends
still, but
last
there's
night.
less
No,
of
I
them.
don't mean literally, but there's way less. Like to go out on the Danforth right now and hail a cab 5 years ago would have been pretty easy.
You'll
Now-
see 10 times more cars with like the Uber and the Lyft sign than you would like a
Now
cab,
you
you know?
can't
Do you
really, like,
remember
hail a
walking
cab.
around downtown
No.
Toronto when it was like all cabs? It was
Yeah.
a bit of an eyesore in my opinion. I didn't like it. I'm a really big I'm an advocate of Uber / Lyft. I don't know all the numbers. Somebody might argue to me, well, Uber could do a better job of paying the drivers, and my dad drives Uber. Okay, so I have a dog in this fight, so to speak. Like I care
have a
about
dad in this fight.
I have a dad in this fight. I care about how much my dad makes. You know what I mean? So I don't say this like coldly, but he seems happy. Now it's not a lot of money. I've heard that they were getting less than minimum wage, so on and so forth.
Well, because they don't even pay that's the problem,
Yeah.
right? Because they don't pay them by hour. They strictly do a percentage cut where like Uber gets like 20% and the driver gets like 80 or something.
Yeah.
And then, so it's hard, like you said, to dictate because it's like if I drive someone really far and I make like $50 and I got to give you 20%, 20% of $50 is like a lot.
And then out of my share, I have to pay
the gas and time.
insurance,
Exactly.
and overall repair on my car out of all that. So once that's all done, you're left with like $12. It's sort of like the argument.
It's like how
so
good is
I say that
really?
because I try to be a conscientious when I'm supporting a fucking $1 trillion corporation. I try not to support them blindly. I'm aware that there are some issues there, but I'm still a fan of that model over the taxi model.
Same.
Yeah, for
Taxi drivers. Several women in my life were harassed by taxi drivers where they like locked the door because they misunderstood. With one of my exes, she was trying to go to a club, and then the club had a funny name. I can't remember what it was, but the taxi driver took her to a business that had a similar name, right? And then when he realized it was the wrong location, she of course gets like super like attitude-y and goes like, "Fuck you, take me to the right spot. I'm not paying you extra. Like take me to the place I told you to take me to." And so he fucking locks the doors and is like, you're going to pay me more, blah, blah, blah.
Oh,
That's like, and this is
no.
like from like 10 years ago. But this is just a random example of like there's nobody watching these cab drivers. They're not hooked up to any system. There's just a
Exactly.
person they check in with on walkie-talkie once in a while. Like, next rider, please.
And this is what I say.
There,
this is what I say. No offense, but like, what stopped you guys from doing that? Like, why didn't you develop an app where you could track your fucking cab drivers and do all this shit?
It wasn't as good. It didn't catch on.
They did
But
it
at
after,
that
though, I
point, it was
think.
too late.
It was too late.
And
Yeah.
they still have
It
it.
was
I
too
actually
late.
installed the Beck Taxi app at one point.
Oh, did you?
Because I wanted it as an option.
But, like, can you,
I'll
like,
give I'll
track
give you
your
10
driver?
megabytes. Yeah, it has that stuff.
And on the way there too.
I think so.
Like, it tells you
I
where
can't
they are?
remember. I'm not gonna. But all I remember is the issue for me was because I wanted it as an option for when Uber goes crazy. Because there have been times in
surge
my
rates
life where
and
the
shit.
surge rate gets so crazy that maybe the taxi there would be a little bit less.
Yeah.
But then I remember one time I put in the taxi ride and it was like $57, and I'm like, I've never paid more than $17. Like, what the fuck are you talking about?
Yeah,
That's
it's
wild.
Get your lives together.
Yeah, like I was
uninstalled
out
that
like a
shit
couple weeks
immediately.
ago and my phone died. And like when your phone dies, like that's the one shitty fault of like Uber and Lyft is like you can't. There's no way you can like order it then, right?
You get the little
so my
little
phone
battery
dies.
packs and shit though. You need it.
I know I need that so badly. That's my next upgrade. But like, so my phone dies. I'm out. I'm like pretty trash at this point. I get in a cab. I'm like, fuck whatever. Like it's my last option. Like who cares? I'm so close to my home. And he literally says, where are you going? And this is my other problem with cabs. You can never enter like your exact address. And even if you give them your exact address, like they don't know where that exact address is. They might know like intersections and shit,
It's a
but like
dude.
it's a dude, you know, he's
Named
only knows
Garth.
so much.
Hey Garth, I'm sure you know the city pretty well, but not as well as like
An app
And most
would,
of them
or
put
his
in-
Google.
put it in
would.
on GPS or whatever, like on their Google Maps or whatever. But
Yeah, so this guy tells me
still
like
can't
They do
watch
now.
it. You can't watch it as
No.
they're driving and know that they're going the right way. You know?
Exactly, and that's the problem, right? So I tell this guy, I'm like, oh, you know, he's like, tell me the intersection. I'm like, you know, Bloor and Ossington or whatever. And then all of a sudden, I'm just like in the back, just kind of like waving around. All of a sudden, I look and I'm like, I've been in this cab for like 15 minutes. Like, where am I? And I look up and I'm like, fucking Dundas West somewhere. And I'm like, dude, where are you going? And then he starts immediately attacking me and being like,
he knows
you didn't
instantly-
tell me where we
instantly
were
he knew
going,
what
like
he
da
did.
da da. And you're like, come on, man. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not, you're the one getting paid here. Like,
And
what is
honestly,
this?
I would
Like,
call you on it if I thought you were being unfair, but that's a really normal experience when back
Always.
from my days
Yeah,
of driving
for
in
sure.
taxis.
Do you know what
Yeah.
I haven't had that many bad experiences. This is like pales in comparison to some people's like, you know, assault and whatever other experience they've had. But my worst experience that I always had in cabs and like back to like cabs was that they would give me like shit for using debit, like literally yell
Yeah.
at me, or they would roll down the window and they would say, how are you paying, and I'd say debit, and they drive off.
Yeah, it's so
literally,
rude.
they didn't want to use
you're right.
debit, and also they would also go, where are you going, because they want to know that
they're
they
cherry
can
picking.
do a few quick stops so that they can make more money, which I understand. But it's like it just created this like toxic environment that made
It
me like
does.
really hate cabs.
And this
where I
is
was
this
just
is
like,
the beauty of competition is they created Uber. If they were doing the job properly,
There'd be no such
wouldn't
thing.
have been an opening for Uber.
They created a need in the market.
They
you know?
had 100% market share.
Yep,
They had
did.
100% market share, and they were like, there's lots of new technology in these new devices. Should we take that into consideration? Nope, has nothing to do with us. And it was like, oh, generally speaking, if you check like global feelings about taxi experiences, people generally are uncomfortable in them. The approach to tipping and how much you tip is kind of uncomfortable. The methods of payment is uncomfortable. Taxi drivers as drivers don't have a great rating. It's like, should we address those things? 20 years passed. No, we shouldn't address those things. So you guys created the opening. Somebody came along and was just like, oh, this thing that people have such a negative experience and they're overpaying for it.
And also, no offense, but like you said, like foreign, like what I love personally, like I think the one really positive thing that comes from this like Uber and Lyft situation is people like your dad can now open his app and start making money,
Yeah, he
as
does.
opposed to
He's
if he wanted
semi-retired
to
and he
be
loves
like,
it.
yeah, exactly. It's like it's something for him to do, as opposed to if you wanted to be a taxi driver, you have to like get a permit and
Yeah.
like find a cab and like pay stand fees and all this ridiculous shit that it's like it's very like like
You're right. The weird cab.
It's a weird thing.
The weird cab fees is also like a whole other thing too.
Yeah.
Right?
Even the permits and all that bullshit they have to pay to the city and all that crap, you know?
That's
when
I
it's
think
like
they're just gonna have to. I think they might have to get rid of those. I don't know how you do that. I don't know how you just get rid of crazy fees. Because in New York, it's something like they're $100,000, and I'm like, you got yeah. It's because it's like they call it cab chip. I think in New York, and there's only so many of them, and so to buy someone else's cab chip to get in the business is like $90,000, I think, or something like that.
wow.
Yeah, they do something with that here where it's like plates. Like I
Yeah.
don't know if
Yeah,
it's
the
like
plates,
It's like
yeah.
specialized
or
plates you
something.
have to get.
Yeah.
But in any case, it's like the market is not going to allow for that. People are going. You think this is the first of many ways. This is. Y'all aren't ready for do you like Enterprise Rent-A-Car, for example?
Yeah.
They bought one of those like rideshare programs too.
Yeah.
And they're investing heavily in self-driving cars too. So Enterprise Rent-A-Car, a huge company, do not fucking sweat them. They're not as big as Uber, but they're making huge moves to also circumvent the taxi system. There's a lot of billionaires coming at your system. You're not going to be able. You cannot win in a competitive market with what you're offering right now.
Because I'm sure there's a ton of billionaires who've had horrible experience in cabs.
And they're just smart enough to know that this is.
And they're
this-
like, I
this
would love to get
avenue
rid
is
of these
open.
guys.
And if you
Yeah.
own Enterprise, and you see self-driving cars coming down the line, you realize that your business is dead in 10 years, 15 years,
Yeah.
if you don't adjust. Because maybe you can rent self-driving cars, that's fine, but I just mean it can't be exactly what it is today.
Yeah.
In a self-driving world 50
Yeah.
years from now, a rent-a-car company.
Well, it's like if Blockbuster had the knowledge to buy into Netflix
Totally.
or become their own Netflix,
Essentially,
you know?
yeah, they should have become like an HBO.
Yeah.
But that would have been their stockholders would have killed them for doing that too early. There was a tiny window where they would have had to make the move and become the other thing. And you see Amazon doing it too right now, where they're going, "Hey, we see where this is going. You need to be a content creator to be one of the big 10 companies of the future. So fuck it." And they're putting like $1 billion a year into production. They're just buying shows like crazy. YouTube bought Lord of the Rings, the series. So YouTube, the TV network, bought Lord of the Rings for like $100 million.
Yeah.
And they're just like making a statement of like, in this future landscape, we're here. Like,
Well, like even they're like Amazon's pioneering a cryptocurrency. They just bought like a
cryptocurrencies?
bunch of cryptocurrency, like dot Bitcoin.
I don't know.
Whatever.
I don't even know what to think about them because everybody lost money on them, and I have a
A
bunch
lot of people lost money. Yeah.
I have money. I still have money tied up in it, and I'm down to wait and see what happens. But we've moved on.
I think it's going to take time, though. I think it's going to take time. Like, it's really going to take a lot of time.
Because
I think so.
My key people in crypto, they're very quiet.
Well, it's like
People-
everything. Think
the people
about
who
Uber
are my
when it
spirit
first
animals
started.
in crypto are very quiet.
I know, but think about Uber when it first started. How many people had negative things to say? Like, I'd never get in a random stranger's car. I'd never do that. Da da da. And then after hearing good experiences about other people using it, they kind of are on board. And I feel like that's what happened in crypto. You know, it
But
just exploded too quickly.
Did Uber ever have a drop of this magnitude?
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. Like, people started hearing so many positive things. Everyone got in. Think about it. If we all bought into like US, the US dollar is going to spike up, right?
Well,
so
I
I think
hope you're
that's
right.
what happened. It just went up way too quickly.
I hope you're right.
And
I
now
hope
it's
so
like
too.
stabilizing. Like,
I should have pulled my money out last December, but I hope you're right.
I know a lot
okay.
of people got like totally like
Well, it's
taken
fine.
over by that, dude.
We didn't invest more than we could afford to lose. That's always how it is, and we're fine. But there was a minute where it was doing so well, I was like, hot damn, I made some really great decisions. And then literally you flicked a light switch and it was like, holy shit, it's 20% of what it was.
I'm a big believer though when it comes to investments, it's always too good to be true. And the moment you start seeing that return, just cash it out, man. Cash it out. Like,
right.
you know, like especially with something so new like that. Like that's like investing in a technology
My
that might be hot
philosophy
for a year and then
was-
die out, you
Because
know?
we everything I do is a bit of a gamble. Every time I spend $5,000 or $10,000 on my album release, that's a gamble.
Totally.
You know what I mean? Like building this podcast and the money that we spend promoting it, those all a gamble because we think it can lead to something. You know what I mean? And so I looked at that when the money started coming in. At do I pull it out or can we afford to risk it and see if
It goes bigger.
this becomes life-changing money because we have all these other investments happening that are working. The Lyric Vids thing is really working. Damaged Goods isn't making money, but the investment's paying off and that it's actually growing. We're really feeling the growth. So, fuck it, let's leave the crypto money in and see if that doesn't become something that could really elevate everything else while we're so focused on these other things. And so we did so knowingly. I remember talking to Jess about it, being like, I still feel like it's worth, we'll give up 5 figures for the only investment that we know that could go to 6 really quickly, potentially.
Definitely.
Let's find out. And now it's back to 3 or 4, so it's just a waiting situation at this point.
Yeah, and now you have to
rest
play
in
the
peace
waiting
to
game.
my
you know?
cryptos for now. And for any listeners out there, I feel like podcast listeners, there's a pretty decent chance that some of our listeners have also lost some money in crypto. So rest in peace to your money
So
as well.
here's a fun tip I'll give you with cryptos though. Something you can do that will potentially maybe work, but no risk involved. What I do is I have like a couple shitty backup phones at my home, and I mine some of the cryptos for free. And so I'm like, that's free. I don't know. It doesn't cost me anything.
How
so
much
if this
money do you
works,
actually generate?
it works. I'm just holding in. Like you said, I'm just holding in hopes that like the 1,000 coins I've cryptoed or like, you know what I mean,
I'm not
mine
mad at it.
will
I
pay
like
off
it.
eventually, right?
I
So
thought
at least
about
it's
it
kind
too.
of like a little bit like more
our recording
free, you
computer,
know?
we had set up doing that at one point, but
Yeah.
it literally was taking more energy to run the thing.
Yeah, you almost need to have a
Right.
So
spare
it's like
computer.
because I did some research and somebody said this, and then as I watched it, I mean, my own shitty math calculations seem to also is that it's literally mining so
more
slowly
energy.
that I'm using more energy than money I'm making. So you're slowly losing money.
Yeah.
While you do it, and so I was just like, fuck it then, because it was worth experimenting, and I thought it was an interesting concept, and I'm about as big a math nerd as you can get for a regular person, in that I think it's cool what those fucking math nerds did with crypto.
Yeah.
And I'm interested to see what happens in the future. There's no going back from the idea of smart contracts. I think the whole thing is very revolutionary, even though a bunch of us lost money. And so I'm really curious to see.
I think like the
what's the next
blockchain
step.
technology is going to be really essential for our future.
It's
Like you
just gonna
said,
be built
securing
into
things.
everything now.
It's going to be built into everything. But I think the one thing that they are figuring out is the electricity point. And what's really cool is I was just reading an article saying that they've bought a bunch of like wind turbines in another country, and they're trying to use like natural wind turbines to like actually
I love the
generate.
idea of wind turbines powering cryptocurrency.
Right? Like how cool is that?
Here's an idea. What if we got a bunch of squirrels?
Mind blowing.
Or like, and not just squirrels. I don't mean to be
on,
not specific. It can be
hamster wheels?
squirrels, hamsters, gerbils, like muskrats, maybe
pigs.
guinea pigs for sure.
Yeah.
And they're running in little wheels.
Just
And they're-
thousands of
and
them.
they're just powering Bitcoin.
Honestly, they need to come up with something else. Like you said, the energy consumption it takes to like mine a coin or whatever is
the world
ridiculous.
is full of rodents,
you know?
and they're not doing much right now for us. I
Yeah,
would
put
say.
those guys to work.
Let's put the rodents. To
Give them a
work.
No,
job.
free the rodents. I'm already protesting it.
Free
the
the slave rodents. Listen, for reals. If I told you, I'm like, Jess, look at this headline. So today on Damaged Goods, CNN just reported this. They created a giant underground, a squirrel and rodent, a rodent farm, and they're actually helping to power some of the country. It's good for the environment. It's going to be good for global warming. But it's a huge, essentially every rodent on the planet is enslaved. It's a horrible life. And they're just running in these wheels. But we're going to save the race. Would you be like, fuck, we can't do that.
Wait, what do you mean save the race?
Well, because in theory, we wouldn't need to rely on some like natural gas less or coal less, so that it'd be good for the environment for us to be relying on those things, or nuclear energy less, because we're running on rodent energy. We're running 80% rodent energy off of these underground slave rats.
Rodent energy.
So would you be on
Trademark
board?
that.
Would you guys be on board for that, or would you be like, no, we
I-
should protest that? The slave rats deserve better lives than that.
I feel like there's a rodent in my house right now, and I'm doing everything I can to get rid of him. And he's just living his best goddamn life, like eating all my food for free.
Is it his best life though? Because he
Like-
could be saving the world. That's all I'm saying.
And that's what I'm saying. Like, listen, if you're gonna live in my house for free, at least do something. Like,
100%.
if you're gonna contribute to my electricity bill being a little cheaper every month,
Yeah.
like pitch in,
So
man.
you're on board with him being
I'm
a
on
slave.
board. I'm on
Here's
board
what I
with
love
him.
about this.
And I don't think he's
100% this is going to be an Instagram clip. Now your take.
I mean, it really depends. Like,
It doesn't depend. I gave you all the facts. That's all you got to know.
Is the Earth gonna end if we don't
Well,
do it?
you get the you guys know that somewhere in England it got so hot that the cement melted and a guy got stuck up to his knee because he walked on cement and just sunk into it. And California's having record-breaking hot days in a row. The world is getting hot.
Yeah.
This shit is real. Like I
is
used to
super
be.
real.
I was never skeptical because I'm not dumb enough to be. But I was a little bit like, it can't be as bad as they said, right? I think that was my perspective as like a teenager, and not. I'm reading some articles. I'm like, oh, it's worse. People are getting stuck in cement. Buildings are melting in the UK because they've never been this hot for this many days in a row. You know what I mean?
Wild.
It's like undeniable math. So just with existing evidence, if I told you that there's essentially this crazy proposition to use all the rodents in the world to move to 80% rodent energy, so 20% could be created with windmills and solar, and go off all the bad stuff, would you be on board? Slave rats. Jess is also a vegetarian, so
Yeah.
and these rats would not be happy. They would die on the wheel, immediately replaced with another rat.
No.
Die on the wheel.
When you put it like that, I say no.
But it's going to save the human race. Is there nothing?
Then let
But here's how I
do
think
it.
about it. Here's how I think about
Is
it.
there nothing worth saving the human race? You wouldn't sacrifice the livelihood and joy of one species to save the human race.
But we already do. That's what I'm saying. We already
yeah, we
do
do.
that, you know? So it's like right now.
I
like,
don't.
Yeah. Like,
Jess is
no,
a vegetarian.
I don't either. I'm 100% vegan. I'm with you.
are
I'm
you?
I'm on the vegan life. That's why
But
I was
you
like,
already said you'd
don't be mean
sacrifice
to
the rats.
cows.
You already said
Yeah,
that.
because listen, they're out here running around every day anyway. Why don't you put that run into work?
Oh yeah,
Put that run
they
into
lived
work.
in happy cages.
No,
where-
they're not happy.
They're not happy.
I don't think it's realistic.
What?
I'm not trying to be a dick, but
I'm like, why
is there
can't they
any
be happy?
evidence-
Why
is there
can't they be
any evidence
happy?
in government or corporate culture that would suggest that they would prioritize that at all? Because they wouldn't.
No.
So I'm just trying to be realistic. They wouldn't. They would just wouldn't. I'm not saying they'd be purposely stabbing them while they run.
Well, that's what I'm
It
saying.
just wouldn't be a priority to make.
Like,
them.
imagine right now if you were like, hey, listen, instead of eating that cow, how about we make it run and we produce energy from it? So, like, instead of it dying cruelly, it just lives this life of, like, running on a treadmill all day.
wouldn't be
Which is
happy.
worse, Jess?
No,
Which
wouldn't
is
be
worse? Like, dying or just, like,
No, it's gonna die both ways.
like,
Yeah,
helping the
If I
world.
had to pick between the two, that's a different argument.
No, they're
I
gonna
feel
die. It's
like.
gonna die
Yeah.
both ways for sure.
Yeah, if it's gonna die either way.
why would
then I
it
guess-
die
Well,
at the
so
end?
all rats
Why does
die
it have to die at the end?
eventually.
Oh no, then no.
All rats go to heaven.
No, I meant the cow example where it's like either eat the cow or make the cow run. That's a
No,
different.
well-
That's a whole different thing.
I feel like
Cows
it's
got
the
into
same
this.
thing with the rat thing. It's
We're
like,
talking
are we
about
gonna
rodent energy.
like?
This is science, people. You can't just switch to cows. Cows can't run at the right
no,
pace. They're too big. The ratios
No, I'm
aren't
saying,
the same.
okay, same with rodents then. Okay, it's the rat race. Is the rat either gonna run on the treadmill and create us energy and help us save our lives,
Or just, like,
or
running
are
your
we just
walls
gonna
and
like
skitter and
kill
shit.
it with a trap? Because that's what people do.
We do be killing them with traps.
Yeah, so we're gonna kill it with a trap, or we're
Jessica.
gonna put it to work and help with the environment and saving our
want
lives
your
for the next
vote.
50 years.
But not. I don't want you to do it dishonestly, because if you still feel like you're for the rats, then
Yeah.
then that's fine.
You're allowed
But-
to be for
but
the
I
rats.
want you to give me. I guess in a world where we were actually voting, let's say this is like on the ballot, I'd be like, yes, for real. Like
You have
I
to
think you
vote.
should really consider voting for this, because like Leighton and Delilah, our niece and nephew, I want them to have the best life possible. And this seems like one of the few things that if we could really get rid of all that shit, maybe that would be a good thing.
What about Whiskers and Cheez-Its nephews?
They have, for real, like having this debate for real, they have less emotion and less awareness and less, like, they aren't even aware of the problem as much. And also, yeah, I'm for our species first. So if it was just like, well, it would be a little nicer here if we did. No, it's not just about that. We're talking about potentially reversing one of the biggest things affecting global warming potentially.
So this is my thing. So our species already is first. So in my life, I try to do everything I
True.
can to stay humble and
First
stay
place, baby.
thankful.
Humans again. Every year. Another
And
year.
not-
A billion years running. First place.
I love how you ask for my answer
go,
and then
go.
interrupt.
Go.
And not make that more painfully obvious that we are on top. So enslaving rats and making them run on treadmills, I think is too much for
we're
me.
in
I would
trouble.
vote no. I would vote no. Final answer.
Okay.
Wow.
Final answer's in. Final
I think
answer's
that
in.
if our species is going to die because we're not making rats run on treadmills, then our species is meant to die.
And also, like,
Our species, no.
I think there's other
You can't
ways.
just sign off on our species dying to
I'm just
save
gonna
rats.
say,
I'm not
like-
signing off. I'm just one person with one
Humans,
vote.
here, this is important. Humans living and our species maintaining is the single most important thing in the universe. It has to be.
But here, let's play devil's
It has to
advocate.
be.
Jess says no. So at that point, let's say we all vote no, and like that's a no. So there's no way that we
That's-
can use rats to produce more energy. So now we are almost challenged as a human race, which I appreciate,
something-
to find a different
yeah,
way to do
a
that.
cruelty-free way.
Well, yes.
of
Yeah,
Once we-
like maybe we all take turns once a week running 10K as humans, and we
Yeah,
all produce the
exactly.
energy ourselves.
Like
you
Black
know?
Mirror.
Once
Yeah,
we move
exactly.
on from
Black
that,
Mirror
I would
shit.
be willing to talk about those other options. I still think y'all are crazy. Let's just give up the rodents, but sure.
Well, I kind of love the no though, because
No, I
like
love-
you know what I mean. It kind of
Jess
makes
is
us
strong
think
enough
about
to give
other
a no,
things.
and that's
like,
the only thing I love about it, because
Yeah.
you're wrong, but you're right in
Is
that
she
I
wrong though?
respect-
Or how are we not wrong? Like we're
No.
killing off rodents for energy. That's
because
not good.
I believe philosophically everything starts with the human race existing in a happy, joyous state as long as possible. That is ground zero. Every decision should be based on that happening.
So your whole stance is like, if we don't exist, the rodents don't exist.
Well, I just mean from a human perspective, because we are humans, and everybody who's ever had this combo or even could be listening to this conversation are also humans. It's a thing we all share in common, right? So us living forever and the human race existing in a happy place. I don't mean like put us in like refrigerators. You know what I mean? Like the human race existing in a happy, joyous, like fulfilled state for as long as possible, I think should be the mission statement for all science and politics. Like, that's the plan. And that's why, for example, I believe that racism is bad, because some of the humans are not getting a joyous state. You know what I mean? So you could boil that down to even just like civil politics. But I'm talking like big picture. That's, to me, is what everything's based on. And so in this scenario, it's an obvious, this is a massive like help to the human species being healthy.
And I think that if our track record was better and we had never done anything like this before, and then all of a sudden it was like the only way to save us is for the rat treadmills, I would feel differently. But that's not. Our track record is that we torture animals, we abuse animals, we overeat animals to the point where it's like eating them's one thing, but it's like we need to eat them for every meal. Blah, blah, blah. It's like,
you're right.
So,
you're right about all those
knowing all that, I would vote no for the rats. But if it was our only option and our only, like if we were like, this hurts us to do it, but we're going to do it,
but
because
like you were
it's the
saying,
only
though,
way to, no, it
it's like crazy to think what you're talking about, though, because it's like, it's almost, that's what it is right now. It's like humans aren't, if they had to have that thought, which is exactly what you said, like we're number one and we should be number one, then maybe we wouldn't eat so much meat, because cows eating mass amounts of like grass and all this stuff is actually producing so many problems.
That's
so like
really good
if
point.
we did actually think of ourselves first, we probably wouldn't be in this situation at all, you know?
Exactly. That's a good point. There's other things we should, if that's the thesis, then there are other things that we should be immediately changing.
Yeah, right away, you know? Because like if we were truly concerned about the environment, we would be like, oh shit, we have to switch our diets. Right. Like that's a huge thing we can do just to like contribute even 1% to the problem, like per person. And like if 100,000 of us or 1 million of us did that, that's like 1,000,000% added towards like a positive thing.
Let's try that, you know? Before the rat torture.
Yeah, like
I'm on board with that. No, that's a really good point. I think that's a good point. That if that's priority number one, well then you start from the ground up, and there's a million things we could be doing.
You could cut out, yeah.
There's a million like laws that should just be changed based on like, well, obviously corporations are taking advantage of this and they're poisoning us. So how about you tax this shit and like not tax this shit, you know?
Yeah.
Because that would actually be better for people. Because even from a basic level, because I'm not really political like that. I don't watch C-SPAN or understand when they're like adding language to laws. I don't pay a ton of attention to that stuff. But I think there's some pretty obvious stuff where you find out like Amazon doesn't pay taxes. I'm not political. It doesn't seem political. But if a company is making $1 trillion,
why aren't they being taxed?
it seems crazy to me that they don't pay taxes. Yeah. Like, to me, that's not political. This is common sense, like, stuff that I think just about everybody, everybody on the planet would agree with. I think everybody but the executives at that one company would agree with.
But the problem is, like, 99% of people won't even ask that question, which is, like, really sad. Because, like you said, they'll be like, Amazon has changed my life.
I think
Amazon's
like
the best.
79% wouldn't. Because
maybe like
the internet
like,
has done a lot for people having those conversations.
Totally.
That's actually why I know it, because people on the internet are kind of annoyed about Amazon not paying taxes.
Definitely. There's definitely like a bigger percentage now, more so than ever, but I do still think there is a lot of like ignorance around people, like you said, almost being like too like selfish in their ways, where they're like, oh, well, Amazon fills this problem that I have of like, you know, consumerism, so they're more on board and they don't really think about the behind the scenes stuff, like why don't they pay taxes?
That's not nuanced. Like I don't think they're mutually exclusive. Like, we are Amazon Prime customers. I'm not an Amazon hater. I love what they do, and I'm even okay with them replacing some of the local business stuff because I buy stuff from them. I'm kind of okay with that, and the big like market regulates itself by, you know, whatever's best and whatever the best price is gonna win. Like, if I save money, I'm kind of okay with a store down the street can't compete, whatever.
But the store down the street probably can't compete because they're paying fucking shitloads of taxes.
Exactly.
And Amazon is not.
The playing field needs to be
leveled out.
As long as Amazon was paying taxes, all I'm saying is I'd be okay with buying from them over. And by the way, we do support local on a lot of things, but there's certain stuff where it's like we don't have 20 grand left over at the end every year.
Here's my point.
We need to kind of be smart when we're buying desks, and we bought these microphones on Amazon. They're twice as much if I go to a local music store here because they're paying for a brick and mortar store and they got to pay these 16 people. It's not just a warehouse situation.
Yeah, and I just feel like if I'm gonna buy something from Amazon and be taxed on it, then like why? Like I shouldn't be taxed. Like if they're not paying taxes, I shouldn't pay taxes either.
And that doesn't feel political to me. Like if someone's like, "Oh, that means that you're a Democrat," like really?
No, not at all.
Sort of like,
it just means I'm
like
a realist. Yeah, I just feel like it's very
Bezos
realistic.
became the richest guy in the world, so I think data's pretty in not just the world, in the richest person in modern history. With like $1.5 billion or something like that. Or maybe it's more than that. $15 billion? Fuck it. He's the richest guy in modern history. It's like, that's math. There's really no denying that they should be paying taxes. He just became the richest person in modern history because he doesn't pay taxes.
And he probably wouldn't have so many billions if he did pay taxes.
If you take the taxes of that, he probably wouldn't be the richest person in modern history because he's only up by like, well, it's still a lot of money, but you know what's really interesting when you talk about that? I read a social media post online, and usually that's useless and a waste of my brain energy. But today, in this one very specific instance, it was very useful. And the person talked about a million and a billion. And they said, don't be confused. The fact that the two words rhyme and sound the same, it indicates to you that they're similar numbers. It goes a million, and then a billion, and then a trillion. They're similar numbers. But they're not similar numbers. A billion is 1 million million.
Yeah.
It is 1 million times the other number.
That's crazy.
If it's even worth mentioning million.
I have a question. Are there any trillionaires in the world? Is that a thing?
No. Because Bezos.
It's just a word, right?
Yeah,
it's just a word that we've created, but there's not actually
companies.
any. You should probably Google that. That's a great question.
No, because Bezos is the richest person in the world. He's not a trillionaire. But there's countries with $1 trillion.
Countries with $1 trillion.
Yeah. There'll be a country with $1 trillion, or like I think U.S. is like $1 trillion.
Well, same thing. Like, what was it? Korea just found like $160 billion worth of gold. So it's like, now are they trillionaires? Like, you know what I mean?
Korea. I think Korea probably got paper like as a country.
Jeff Bezos came up as a trillionaire.
Is he? No.
What? No way.
Google Jeff Bezos net worth. Because I didn't think it was $1 trillion.
Like a billion seems like a lot to me. A trillion, that's fucked up.
I thought it was
143 billion. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
143
it must be the company is $1 trillion company.
It's
but
worth
he's
$1 trillion.
only-
If
he's only
million
a
is even worth
billionaire.
mentioning, right? The fact there's even a word for it, million. And then you go, you have to do the million 1 million more times before you get the B. So it's
Like, it's not even close.
no, it's
like,
not. It's
with
not,
a person, like,
the point
not
is
even
it's not even
close.
And then the article goes on to be like 1 million centimeters is like the CN Tower. 1 billion centimeters is around the planet 1,000 times.
That's
And it's
like being
that's
like-
the difference. It's like you know what I mean. 1 million pounds is 16 elephants. 1 billion pounds is a planet full of elephants. It's
Yeah.
like, that's the difference.
No, literally, that's like me being like, so Toronto homes right now are like $1 million average. That's like me owning $1 million home and be like, I'm almost a billionaire. Like, no, I'm not.
You
Like,
gotta
I
buy
only have $1 million. Like, it's not even close. Like,
999 million more homes to get to that number. The
Yeah,
point being is,
Totally.
so Bezos is 140 billionaire.
fuck, yeah.
It's like he's 140 million x million. It's like you have to like think through an equation to even really wrap your head around.
Like,
the
he
amount of money
could
we're talking
spend
about.
100 million and still be a billionaire.
Oh, there's a whole bunch
That's
of
wild.
there's a whole bunch
That's
of
so
people have done
crazy.
what he could afford to do and still have like 100 million.
Yeah.
It's like he could afford to house every homeless person in the world for 10 years and still have $100 million left over. Or
I
some
love
shit
those
like that.
analogies.
It's
Yeah.
like, wow.
They just rattle your brain so heavily.
It's crazy. And I'm not even the kind of person who's against it, although I will say this, he's just inserted himself in the history books as an important human being. Use that wisely. Bill Gates did us well. I would say our generation had a good leader in that once Bill Gates made a certain amount of money, he was like, I'm kind of done using money as my main thing now because I'm like the third richest person on the planet. I don't need to become the first. And then so Bill Gates and his wife basically spent the next 20 years and still do donating money. slowly.
Honestly-
And I'm not saying you have to do exactly that. I'm just saying be aware that you're like you're now in the top 4 people on the planet of wealth. You have some responsibility to lead by example of what you do when you get to that position.
But really and truly, though, like, we should all be thanking technology right now, because like it's obviously not easy to be a millionaire, because if it was, we would all be. But what I will say is, thanks to technology, last year the stat came out, and it was like last year, I'm sure this has a lot to do with crypto too, but like last year alone, there was more millionaires produced in one singular year than was produced in the last like 10 years or something like that.
More
and that
millionaires,
was
more problems, you know?
Yeah, and that was thanks to technology. Like one kid was like 13, and he became like a he made like $10 million off like an app
a little
and
bit
shit.
as everybody's starting
Going
to make
upward.
lots of money on the internet. But yeah, I think we're in the middle stage now, where it's just like there's opportunities out there that people didn't have before to get that money. You know?
Yeah, definitely.
And I won't stay on this for too long, but it's a really fun thing to consider. I once heard on a podcast with Joe Rogan, this economist, and he was talking about the way that our dollar's valued. It's based on like gold, right? And we've all heard like it's no longer based on gold and all that stuff, but that's not really where I'm going. The point is when it's based on what it's based on now, when you hold on to the money, it becomes slowly worth a little bit more over time. So the incentive is for people to gather as much of it as possible and then sit on it.
Yeah.
So that it can safely make itself money. And it grows exponentially when you invest it, et cetera, et cetera.
Well, that's why so many people like invest in gold and hold it.
That's right.
Right? Because
So
it
that's
goes
the
like
existing
up in
system.
value, and like
So this
it's the same thing.
This professor had suggested as kind of a thought experiment, and I think he had it in his head that we should do it. But I think Joe Rogan took it, and I took it as it's kind of an interesting thought experiment. He said it should be based on non-renewable resources. So essentially, what happens to the equation of money is the longer you sit on it, it slowly becomes worth less. So it would simply de-incentivize people from just hoarding it. You would want to move it. You'd want to create a network of moving it so that it doesn't sit for too long and devalue as you hold it. You know what I mean? Totally. And it's like, I don't know if I'm sure somebody who's way smarter than me could explain why that actually doesn't make sense. But having never pondered that kind of change, I'm a little bit like, hey, politicians, let's just make sure we've considered. Would that be good?
Well, it is kind of crazy to think about.
Yeah.
That type of thing.
It is actually kind of crazy to think about, though, because it's like a car. Like, if you buy a car, the moment you drive it, it devalues.
Yeah.
But, like, and all these things in life are the same way. Like, the moment you get a MacBook and you use it a bunch, it devalues. Like, anything really.
So in a lot of ways, that's the natural order of things.
That's almost a natural order. So it's kind of insane to think about the fact that the one singular thing that doesn't do that actually does the opposite, is our money.
So maybe there's this idea, and somebody smarter than me has probably coined this already, but it's like a new capitalism where it's like still capitalism, it's still about winning, but if you do sit on the money, it becomes worth less. So you don't want to sit on too much for too long. You always want to reinvest it. Mm-hmm. And because, for example, if you invest the money and now the money is a company, well, that always becomes worth more. Because it's as long as you're not sitting on the money, other things will go up in value. If you launch a
like
new
the
app,
products,
the new app can go up in value. So it would encourage people to be starting new things. It would encourage innovation. It would encourage you to invest the money in inventing things, because the cost analysis of sitting on your money or investing it would suddenly be different.
Right.
Because right now the idea of you go, let's say you want to fund a movie. You've written a script, you want to fund a movie, and you go to some millionaire and you say, I wrote this crazy movie, and he's like, man, everyone knows if I fund that movie, I'm never going to make my money back, which is true. They often say that the person who funds a movie needs to like do it not to get their money back. You know what I mean?
Yeah, just to almost waste their money.
But imagine, and so in that case, he goes, the alternative is I don't invest in your movie and I keep my money and it just keeps becoming worth more and more and more.
Yeah.
So now in scenario 2, you come up and you say, invest in my movie, and you pitch him in and he goes, I'm not going to make any money on that. In fact, I'll probably lose money. The alternative, I'm going to lose money. Mm-hmm. It's like, immediately the whole decision making is different. It's immediately changed the incentive of should I invest in things.
Well, that's how like banking capitalizes, right? Because they're like, put your money in a savings account and it'll grow 1% a year with us, and like that's how they kind of get you, right? So there is a lot of like interesting, like you said, like people would probably do more with their money, travel more, use it more, buy more things that they like. You know what I mean? If they had that option of like knowing it wouldn't create more value for them in future,
I don't
right?
know if there's some other thing where the whole economy would crash and for some reason I haven't considered. I'm not suggesting that I'm the guy, but it's an
interesting thought.
I will say, I think the economy. There's things in civilization like the economy that affect us all in like huge ways, and I don't understand. And those are the things I often don't understand very well. And here I am, wasting away, spending my time worrying about things that affect me like 1%, and meanwhile there's this thing that affects me like 80% that I barely understand. And so when you hear something like this, my brain for a moment, because I go back to living life and smoking weed and traveling the world and not thinking about this, for a moment I think, I hope the smartest people have like properly considered these two options and they're certain that the one that we're on is the right one. But I don't feel confident in that.
Unfortunately, the smartest people aren't necessarily the ones in power all the time.
No, I don't feel confident in that at all.
Super fair.
Trust me. And that's one of the things that troubles me the most and why I struggle
Imagine
with
like
politics.
pitching that to be like, how about our money decreases in value? Like, do you think anyone would go for that?
No, because everybody with the money would be like, fuck no.
that.
But it also makes me think about investors. Like you said, like if I know that if I sit on my money for a year, it can make me more money. And then I have the opportunity to invest in something that's a total gamble. Like it could be a Uber, Airbnb, whatever the case is. So like it's really interesting to think about the concept behind like investment firms because they have the opposite mentality where they don't sit on their money. They want to invest in things that they hope will make them more money. Mm-hmm. So like I always wonder why they don't have that same concept of like, well, we have $1 million in our investment firm, so could we invest $1 million into a bunch of startups, or are we just going to sit on the $1 million and make $2 million at the end of the year?
Investment companies do invest heavily, especially these days. But
Very heavily.
I think it's a lot of like safe tech investments. They double down on obvious next moves. When the guy from Uber jumps ship and goes over here and he's launching this new payment software, he gets a fuckload of funding because they believe he's going to do it again. I think there's a lot of that still.
Of course, yeah.
But yeah, it's just interesting to think about. Yeah, we spend money. We know what it is loosely. I think the average person has a rough idea. We get like a C+ on defining what it is and how it actually works and why it works the way it does. And to be honest, the more of those questions I ask, probably the less I'd be able to answer them. I'm not great at knowing exactly why we have the money system that we have. But again, like it's just...
Or how dollars go against dollars.
It's interesting to think about
whatever.
When it comes to the money system, the education system, the political system. I tend to be a little bit radical, like... Who's to say there's not a way better system that maybe the people from 90 years ago just hadn't thought of yet?
Well, it's the same thing that you were mentioning earlier about the wine thing. It's like, why are there still wine rules from Prohibition? Totally. Why is money the same way it's been for a million years, right? It's like weird stuff Google, like that.
People without existing day university education level intelligence, people who we could probably all beat in like a knowledge off, wrote the rules for these things.
Definitely.
And that to me is weird. Somebody who...
It does concern me a lot.
Didn't really understand things that on a pretty high level that we could talk about, were like, the forefathers, so to speak, would be like, what? Like, I've never heard anybody even say these words before. And they wrote all the systems, and we just go, for sure they got it right. First try. They got it right first try. Because there's no data in life that suggests first tries often don't work, or that, you know what I mean, or that you might learn things over time that would improve things. But unfortunately, on this first try, the first try creates a power imbalance, and now there's people in power who forever want to stay that way. And again, I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I think that's just math. Whoever wins a game, let's just say we played a game of asshole. Everyone knows how asshole works, right? The loser gives up their best cards. The winner gets like the fucking best cards. The point I'm getting at is the people who win, they're never going to want to change the rules. It's like, no. This is working.
Because it's working for them, right?
All we know is we're one game in, and I won. So let's just keep playing the way we're playing. I don't want to shake anything up. And that's, I think, is sort of common sense and basic math, that even if you, as a good person, won, you'd be more likely to want to play the game again by the existing rules, so that you will continue.
Well, because you know the rules, right?
And it
now
worked for you before.
Them.
All you know in this sort of thought experiment is that you played once before, and it worked. You won.
Well, it's almost like
play
that's
again the same
why
way
the money system kind of is with the way it is, right? It's like everyone's winning off of it. Everyone's making more money, so no one's really down to challenge it, because it's like, why would I challenge something that's making me more money?
In some world, we were able to try different systems, because you can't really do that. It's really tough to like wipe the slate clean and try a different system. It's not really possible to do that. But let's say you kind of like in some kind of laboratory setting, try the different systems. It might prove that some weird barter X credit system is the best way to do it.
Well, I'm sure there's some like
no way
super
for us
smart
to ever even find that out, because no one would ever risk to try it.
Mm-hmm. You know, but just like you were talking about, I'm sure there's like some super brilliant like economist who's like in university.
He's done all the math.
He's done all the math, and he knows the formula, and he's like, this will work better.
Would work.
But like you said, it's some dumbass who's at the top who's not, his chair's not going anywhere. So it's like
the system is not set up
it's not
for some
level
genius
up
to do the math.
Yeah.
Fix the system. Be like, I fixed it. Then some Jeff Goldblum like characters like, I fixed it. He's got a clipboard, and they're like, unfortunately, it's just like, no, it would. There's too many people who will be put out by this discovery.
Yeah.
And yes, that annoys me, but some parts of that don't annoy me, because it's a little bit like, well, that's just how it is. Because you can't. someone else made their living with a solution, and now you have a better solution. It's very tough to expect that the previous guy's going to be like, "Yay, I was wrong."
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
I was wrong.
And then also it's like
a better way.
domino effect.
It's just it's hard to expect someone to feel that way about things.
Total domino effect too, because I'm sure there's 10 other guys who've been backing him the whole time on that, right?
That's right.
And they all go down with it. So it's like you can't just take the whole army
And by
down,
10,
right?
you know, it's millions.
Yeah, millions.
Millions.
By
That's
10, I mean,
billions.
millions.
Exactly.
And that's why I have a radical belief, I'm going to put it out there on this podcast, that I think that this should be the case. And I would venture to say that before I die, when we were old people, this might even be the case, where professor types, scientist types will be the people in politics. Because I think things keep getting trickier and more complicated. And when you listen to a politician talk, I leave the situation often thinking, I don't know if he knows how to solve the problem. And then you listen to, like, even here, like in Toronto universities, at York University, these like teachers who spent 30 years studying systems and historic systems and debating which ones would work and why that couldn't work. I don't think I need to explain why that would be obviously somebody we should be considering talking about that conversation for us.
I think it's becoming more and more a nerd's world, you know? Like, I think, like...
It seems obvious. They spent their whole lives debating these things.
And also,
I know what you
like,
guys are saying, and it doesn't feel like it is right now.
Not right now.
No.
But I think
I'm
that's
saying
just
should
because
be.
of, like...
No, I'm saying should
I
be
agree.
primarily. That's like should be. And then...
I hope
italics
so. I hope
underneath,
so.
Yeah.
I could see a future that.
Yeah.
Things are so
Hopefully in our
fucked up
lifetime.
where we're like, who's the smartest person in the room? Let's hear what he has to say on the subject
Let
right
that
now.
that guy go to bat, yeah.
If things keep getting more intense, like people of our generation, after especially a post-Trump era, let's talk about the PTE, the post-Trump era, where we're all in our 40s and we're going, never again.
Yeah,
But
let's
I don't
never
know.
let that happen.
I
I'm kind of
could
with
really see
Jess.
us-
Like, it does concern me because it's like we were there. Like, we had
no, we
Obama
were.
and he was doing some really amazing stuff. And then we went backwards and we got
Obama's
Trump.
not
Like,
perfect
how did
either.
that happen?
Obama's kind of...
No, I'm just saying,
he's
but like
kind
as
of
an
business
example,
as usual.
you know? But I'm just saying, as a great example,
Don't
like...
get me wrong, Trump is definitely a step backwards. I'm just saying.
like 10 step backwards in my opinion.
yeah.
So like you said,
You're
it's
making me
not
sound-
like we're moving
somehow you make
forward.
me sound like a Trump defender and all this.
No, not at all.
Fuck Trump.
But I'm just saying, like, as an example, like, you know, how did we go backwards in that situation? Like, I thought we were gonna go forward and get someone better, like a Bernie or something, you know? Like, but we didn't. So, like you said, it's like I'm almost
we have
concerned.
different
it's like,
generations. We have different...
how do we get forward?
Socioeconomic groups. You hear a lot of comedians who toured the middle of America say they were not surprised because they went and played those shows in these Trump states and they see and hear these people. And so when you see Trump, you're going, oh yeah, they vote for him.
Oh, hell
But if
yeah,
you
they
live in
would.
New York, Toronto, because we were in a bubble too, we were surprised. We had a weird night that night too, even though we're outside of it. If you live in some of these places, yeah, I could see why you would think like, yeah, that's a buffoon. But some of these people, what they value, if they were to like make a little list, you compare that list to that like little broadcast of Trump, and you're like, I'm seeing a lot of connections here. Just the idea of like fame and like there's this like being funny and like he's not an uptight corporate type. He's kind of got the like, hey, let me tell you a little secret. You know what I mean? Like these are things that
And he's got the
some
previous
man
personality
in like Wisconsin
credit.
would like. I like that about him. That he like looks down and goes, "Let me tell you something that they don't want me to say." Like that whole energy. No other presidential candidate would talk like that, and he kind of has that sometimes.
Well, sadly enough, like you
It's
said,
all
the
bullshit, trust
population
me.
is so much more en masse to that than it is to the opposite side of things, right?
When I was really young, a girl named Lindsay I knew, super genius. She was studying something at university about essentially how to like make the world a better place, and what her group was doing on this like high like master's level was talking about how education essentially solves every problem. So you know, one thing they were looking at is the parts of Africa where there's an AIDS problem and there's a lot of misinformation about how you get AIDS and how you get rid of AIDS. You've sort of heard some of the horror stories about that. They're talking about how education just solves that problem. You just mass educate.
No, I did
And
watch
it,
that documentary,
it
actually.
eliminates problems. And it's like you could go into, I think, some of these like American places and like mass educate and just like catch them up. They simply don't know. And I think there's certain things that ignorant people will be okay with once they're mass educated. You know what I mean?
Not to get super political, because we all of a sudden kind of went down that rabbit hole, but that's also why the sex education thing is so devastating, because it's like literally denying people in these small towns
the education.
It's not shoving anything down people's throats. It's just literally like, this is this and this is that. Some people have 2 dads.
Here are the
blah.
facts.
Like, yeah, exactly. It's literally just facts. It's not even saying whether it's right or wrong. It's just like
it's
facts.
just giving facts.
I would even be okay with a centrist version where they don't say, because I think there's a version where you say it is okay.
Yeah.
But I would settle for a centrist version where it's like, these are things you will come across, and we're not going to tell you whether right or wrong. We don't know, but you will meet people who are this or this or this.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's pretty centrist for me, because I would actually rather say it's perfectly okay. Whatever. I would rather say all those things, but I would allow for. These are things you will see.
Yeah.
If it made some people comfortable.
That's like the bare minimum.
No,
and,
I know.
and it's insane to me.
No, that's it's insane to me
like
that
being
because it's like denying facts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
And also, it's like you said, if you give them the information and they want to deny it, that's one thing. But the fact that you're literally restricting them from the information at all is just a whole other problem.
En
itself,
masse,
you know?
statistically, people don't just ignore information. En masse, when you're exposed to gay people, like when I was a kid, I was never homophobic, because when I was a kid, I remember often thinking like, I don't know if I am or not. Like I have no data. How would I know? I remember thinking about that a lot as a kid. Like, how do you know? Because I was sort of like, I guess like in my head before that point or whatever. So I came from that place, but I definitely felt then when I realized I sort of wasn't like foreign to the concept. Like I'd never at that point met a gay person. So then when I moved to Toronto, I guess probably college was when I first started having gay friends. I moved to Toronto, I had many gay friends. I definitely went from being like in the middle to being like super pro, like, hey, anybody who has an issue with this,
exposure, education.
That's all I'm saying. So certainly never on the bad side, but definitely in the middle of like, I don't really know, never met anybody.
If you were denied that, or if you
and now they're like,
Toronto, you could have went the other way. You know what I mean? Like,
and also 9 times out of 10, every single time, it's like there's racist or homophobia or whatever. It's literally almost always lack of education.
That's all it is.
Exactly.
Always,
lack
always,
of education, lack of exposure.
I watched that
You have one
documentary.
really great black friend, and it's just like, if you're from a white town, I get you. You look at a guy who's maybe on like The Wire, and you're like, I've never seen a guy like that. This big 7-foot black guy. If you've never seen a guy like that in your life, I understand like, whoa, big guy or something. I can go with you that far. So then what we need to do is exposure. There are black people who live in these areas. There's no reason why we can't
just exposing them to that.
Expose you to that. So it's like, because once you hang out with anybody,
once again, education
like,
too, right? Like if I watch a TV show and I only see black people being violent, I'm being educated that that's black people are violent, but that's not true. You know what I mean?
Different, like.
Well, I'm just saying, like, let's say that is the concept I have. You know, it's like, well, I'm literally feeding that information to my brain. But like you said, if I meet someone and it's like this sweet little guy and he's like in school and he's like doing amazing things, you're teaching your brain like not every single person is like that, no matter what color they are, where they come from. It's just once again lack of education, right? Like I think truly,
it's an easy problem to solve. And once again, it's like I think what I'm getting at is that like it's common sense for anybody who has friends who are from South Asia or who are black or gay or trans. It's like even let's say you're abstractly okay with them. You're like, yeah, I'm cool with everybody of every type. And then you have a friendship of somebody who's in one of these other groups, so to speak. You suddenly have like an appreciation for like their experience. And that's why a place like Toronto, a place like New York, a place like LA are really special, because you do have all of those experiences. I have first generation immigrant friends. I have second generation immigrant friends. I have friends on not every color of the rainbow, but several colors of the rainbow. And it's just like they all have different but pretty similar experiences. And that alone is invaluable information. Just that, it's a little different from some of the people who've told me stories, but largely the same. Just kind of it lands different based on kind of what your thing is or whatever. But it's just like that in itself taught me so much that it kind of all fades into one thing and I stopped thinking about it.
I think that's like the beautiful thing too, is like discovery, right? Like when you have that special moment where someone shares like some cultural thing with you and it like makes you so appreciative of like what you have, that's where you almost become like invested in it, where you're like, oh my God, like this is amazing. Like I can learn from this person something I've never learned before. And like I was the same way. Like obviously I come from Newfoundland. It's like white as hell. It's like nobody around. Same thing. It wasn't that it was homophobic. No. It's just that no one ever talked about it.
Yeah.
So like when I got here and I was like, there's a gay village?
Yeah.
What? Like I couldn't handle that. Like I didn't know how to even accept that. I was like, this can't be real. Like, are you kidding me? And then it's like once I went into that village and I started getting to know people, and then not only did I discover gay people, but I discovered trans and I discovered all these other things. It's like you almost get like so intrigued by this new sector of life that you've discovered that you never discovered before, you know? It's like, it's really interesting to see like how, like you said, where you go, it just plays off so differently than other places, right?
And what's great about information is it only goes one way. It's like there's no thing where you go from a big city to a small town and you suddenly become homophobic again.
It never happens.
The idea is that it's like once you're exposed, it's like, oh man, they're cool in a same but different way. Like I love the energy of my black homies. Like I love it. Like I look forward to seeing my black friends because they're awesome the same way as my white friends, but with a slight different awesomeness about them. You know what I mean? And it's like, you can't have that. You can't have those associations until you do have some drinks with people with a different background. You can't go hanging out with Italian people. We are fucking affectionate. And yeah, we're the same as everybody else and we have the same issues, but we're a super affectionate people and we talk with our hands and we hug and I'll cut you off, but only because I'm having so much fun talking with you. And you can only have that experience once you hang out with an Italian guy and have a couple of drinks, or you know what I mean? And I think that's what you get in this city. Information only goes that way. You can never be like forget what it is to be different than what your family's like.
And the opposite is true too, where sometimes you'll meet somebody who's like literally the opposite of the stereotype, and you'll be like, oh, like this person, maybe maybe let's say I'm racist towards Italians because my small town family says all Italians are loud and obnoxious or whatever.
We are, but
and then I meet an Italian who's like, oh, they're just a normal person, just like me.
There are also quiet.
And if Italians. I don't know, Italian's a weird example because there's tons of Italians where I come from, but it's just like, you know what I mean? Like it's just like.
But I love that though, where you can find like similarities. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Like, and it's just like it's both things. It's learning to appreciate the cultural differences, and then it's also realizing that not everybody's really that different. You know what I mean?
You're right. The beauty is in the balance. The beauty is in the balance. Because the beauty is in that Italians are affectionate and loud. Because ignoring that or denying that is sort of like denying some of the fun of what it is to be Italian.
Right.
Because I would love the world to embrace that we're about good food and loud conversations at the dinner table, and that's an Italian thing, you know? But at the same time, it's not that simple. It's nuanced because we're also humans. More important than those things. So we're also humans. So we also have depression. So there's also going to be depressed Italians, and there's also going to be, you know what I mean? Like,
but that's what like I personally like love about like having those experiences. For an example, just like you said, like when I came here and I started to meet a lot of black people, like obviously I didn't meet a lot of black people in Newfoundland. You know what I mean? Yeah. And so when I came here and I met a lot of island people, I realized like I'm from an island, you're from an island, and when they share those experiences, I start to realize how much similar it is. But my grandmother might say like, oh, that's completely opposite, but she doesn't know because she's never had that shared experience. But when I talk to someone and they share the experience, they're like, oh yeah, we all eat dinner together, or like every Sunday we do like a family thing. I'm like, oh my God, we do that too in Newfoundland. Like that's an island thing we do. So you almost find like really cool like similarities too, where it starts to bring you back to like just people and not like race or color, like any of that shit. You're just like, oh my God, we're people, like you said, you know? And we just, like you said, even though you're Italian, like that's like the Italian thing, like some other families might be like that too, and that's just how they're raised. So like you might find that connection and just be like, 100%. Oh, we're just like humans who have that like bond.
Use
you know?
me as a really quick, simple case study. Like I'm Italian. It's a really proud part of me. So I don't want people to completely disregard it. I like that I'm Italian, you know?
I think you should be proud of your culture.
Look at other things that say about me. They're so not Italian. Like I don't like sports. That's very Italian. I'm not religious. That's very Italian. I'm not. I mean, I love my family. I'm not a family person. But compared to Italians, not really a family person because Italians are like family above all else. They visit their cousins and grandma every weekend. It's just not my style.
Well, like you said, not everyone fits a
That's the point.
Stereotype, so it's like textbook.
It's always much bigger
right?
than that. So that's the thing that I'm proud of, and I wave that flag literally, like the Italian flag. But also, it's more than that because also a little ADD, and that's got nothing to do with me being Italian. You know what I mean? I'm also chronically ambitious. It's got nothing to do with being Italian. And so if I was Jamaican, or if I was Hispanic, or if I was an Inuit, or whatever, the fucking all the little colors of the rainbow, whatever I was, I could be any of those same things that have nothing to do with it. And of course, again, we all know that, but it seems like a conversation that some people, it's like, that's a pretty obvious convo. How is that not the obvious?
Well, it's not obvious to people who haven't had that experiences like we have, right?
Yeah,
you've had that experience, so like you've been educated, right? It comes back to that factor of like what we talked about is like you have that experience, it educates you. You have a next experience, educates you again. Someone else who stays in that small town, never speaks to anybody, they're never gonna have those experiences. They're never gonna break out of that box,
if you
right?
live on some small farm, on some small town with, and all you got is Netflix, and you think gay person, all you think is like queer eye for the straight guy, and honestly, this happens a lot where I talk to one of my less aware people I meet on the road, more than like friends, but it's like, you know that there are like straight acting gay people, right?
Yeah.
And they're like, no, not really. I'm like, no, bro. There are millions of like, I don't mean straight acting. I just mean like you wouldn't know just chatting with them that they were gay.
Yeah.
And it's just like, bro, I would know. And it's just like, bro, I don't think you really, like, all you've ever seen is like queer eye for the straight guy type thing. And by the way, I would also say with some of those guys I wouldn't know necessarily walking by on the street that they were gay right out the gate.
Yeah. The chef guy, like you would never know he was gay unless he told you, you know? Like
Anthony?
no offense, but like
Anthony I wouldn't know right away.
Yeah. And like it's really funny you say that because like I remember when I came out to my parents, like my mom was like super cool. She's like, oh, I knew that. And my dad, like he was fine. He was super cool because I was raised by a single dad. So he was fine. He kind of was like, did I do something? And I was like, no.
Did he ask that for real?
Like, yeah, he was like, he's like, you know, I always like made you do sports and stuff. And I was like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, no.
Made you do sports.
And literally he straight
Man,
up said to my face, he was like, I just need to know, like, are you gonna turn into a boy? And I was like, Dad,
that's different.
That's transsexual. Like that is not. I'm not turning into anybody else. Like I'm just gay now. That's it. I date women. That's it. And so like once again, it's like that education factor of where I come in and I'm like, those are two different things. Like you're talking about two different things. And how the fuck would he know that? You know what I mean? It's like you said, he's only seen queer eye for the straight guy, so he doesn't have a clue.
I need to ask
right?
you a question, and I wasn't gonna ask, but you said two things sort of back to back, and I need to ask about the two things.
Let's go.
You said, I came to Toronto, never seen gay people before, and then you said when I came out to my dad. So that's interesting that you, like, I've never seen gay people, and obviously in your head you're like, pretty sure I'm gay. Was that interesting?
You know what? I always had that question like you, where I was always like, why am I attracted to women? That's so weird. Maybe it's because like I don't like the way like guys are like this or guys are like that. So I almost would convince myself that it was like something.
Yeah.
It wasn't just like me being gay. Because once again, it's like I never knew about that, right? And then all I remember was my parents would always be like, I had this friend, and they would always be like, you can't go to his house. And I'm like, why? And they're like, you just can't. And I'm like, why? And they're like, he lives in the middle of the woods, and his mom's kind of weird. You just can't go there. And I'm like, okay, whatever. And then I remember one day, and I'm like, fucking, I'm coming to your house, man. Jumped on the fucking quad, went off to his house, and we show up.
On the quad.
On the quad, guys. You heard it first. So we get there, and straight up, his parents live in the middle of the woods. Like, it's just trees. There's no houses around. And I go up to the house, and his two mothers come out of the house, and they are like two like big butch lesbians.
Interesting.
And they're, what I come to find out later, they're the people who cut our wood for everyone in the town I grew up in had like a wood stove to heat their house, right? They didn't have like oil back then.
There's something really funny about two lesbians who make wood. Anyone?
Lesbian lumberjacks.
Anyone?
Lesbian lumberjacks. Like, isn't that wild?
Wood, I get it.
And I swear,
wood all
that
day?
moment that I like met that, like I saw them, I was like, what is this? And then like literally I remember having that conversation with him, and he's like, I remember he didn't even know what to call it. He wasn't even like, oh, my moms are gay or like my moms are lesbian. He was like, you know, my mom just like is with this other mom. And like
that's
two
so
moms. And I was just like, I want to be with a mom.
I just got
Like it was that moment where I was like, I want to be two moms. Like what?
Wow.
And like that was my moment.
That's
and like
kind of beautiful in a sense that like not even knowing what gay is, but just being like, my
That
mom
might
is
be
with
my
another
favorite
mom.
story
like,
I've ever heard. Like,
it was
great.
beautiful. It was a beautiful moment for me, and I was like, I'm so glad I didn't listen to my parents. Like,
interesting.
I went there and I did that, and honestly, that's another huge
appreciate you
reason
sharing that.
why like I left Newfoundland, because I was like, I don't feel like I can come out here or like be out here or like
It's not,
nobody
probably not
here
a great
knows.
place.
Like,
even, I mean, that's probably
We
bad
have
to say,
one.
but,
We
to
have
be
like
gay.
one gay club, and it's secret. It's like literally a secret club
Wow,
called
still now,
Velvet,
too?
still to date. And you have to
Wow.
go through an alleyway, and in the back of the alleyway, you like go up. Like everyone who's gay
Secret
like
hand
knows about it.
signals?
No secret handshakes, unfortunately, but still very like you only would go there if you were gay or you supported a gay friend, and like that's kind of it. Like you wouldn't go there to be like,
That's
hey,
smart.
let's
So you
just
came
go
to
there.
Toronto.
And, you know,
So it was partly to like grow as a person from that angle, and then to take it back to the beginning because you had some dreams of making waves in the music industry.
two massive things. One, I was like, if I want to be in the music industry, I can never do that here.
Yeah.
Two, if I want to be my gayest, freest self, I
Yeah.
can never be that here. I'll
Yeah.
get bashed. My my family won't understand.
Not to mention,
and,
also, it's just like you also wouldn't have many options. It's
I wouldn't
kind
have
of
many
nice to
options.
like
how many
find what you
gay
want.
women are there in
right?
Newfoundland?
Just
like,
from a math perspective,
probably
you're kinda
not
like,
a lot.
I'm trying to get somebody real sexy, and I've looked around. And there's like 6 of you, and I don't really want to convert.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's
converting
like,
people
there's
takes
6
a lot
other
of
gay
work.
girls, and I know all of them,
Yeah.
and yeah, for
Literally.
sure. That's what
That's
it was
funny.
like.
when
in
I
my
go back to
hometown, for
Newfoundland
sure.
now, they just had like their first ever gay pride or something.
Wow.
And like my mom
It's like
went.
6 people just in one driveway.
No, straight up, my mom told me, she was like, yeah, there was like maybe like 200 or 300 people, and
Good for
most
them.
of them were like supporting their
for
like
them.
daughter or son or whatever, you know?
Yeah.
So like even just now, they're just having gay pride. Like that's just like a brand new thing for them, you know?
I love that because it's funny that it's happening there because it's also happening around the world in like other places
Yeah.
that were like recently very homophobic. And some of them are still are, but in places in India, etc., you're starting to see more open like support for gay people because they know, again, once you know, you can't unknow. The minute you have one great gay person in your life, you adjust the math and you go, okay, so there's just like a percentage of us that are.
Yeah.
And what does that mean? Mostly it means we just need to stop talking about it and move on. And you're seeing places like approach that conversation. I don't think India and not to generalize because I don't
like-
stay up on it enough, but I don't think they're ready to go all the way like where we are right now in Canada, where it's like
Of course
it's
not.
even
Not
a
that
conversation.
accepting. Yeah.
We're
But you
almost
feel
like
it.
over the conversation because
Yeah,
it's
we're
like
over it.
But
yeah.
you feel it, and
Like-
not just with gay rights, but also like feminist rights. Did you guys hear about the girl who danced on Instagram or something? So she filmed herself dancing, which is illegal in, I don't want to say India again. I don't know
No, it's
exactly.
not India. It would
But
be a
is-
specific.
It is
spot.
that part of the world. So
Yeah.
I cannot recall exact, but this is very big. This was like the most talked about article on Twitter a couple days ago. Girl arrested for dancing online. I think it might be India. You tell me. And then what
Can't believe I
happened
never heard about
is
that.
then within 24, 48 hours, all these other women,
Iran.
Iran.
Iran, yeah,
There
of
you go.
course.
Sorry. All these
That's
other.
why they dance inside and they have a lot of
That's
dinner
right.
parties.
All these other women filmed themselves dancing and posted online like in support of her. And it was just like, so that wouldn't have happened maybe 5 or even 10 years ago. But it's like, they feel it too. Everyone knows. We all know this is stupid.
Yeah.
Like, if anything, women are like superior in many ways. It's like these countries where they can't drive, can't vote. It's like they know that's stupid. Even in those countries where they can't.
That's what the great thing about the internet is that now
Information goes
everybody
only one
has
way,
access.
and the
Yeah.
internet is everywhere. Even
Yeah.
if you think it's not, they're on
It's there.
devices, and and maybe it's not enough, and that will grow. That's the other thing. There will never be less internet in those countries than there is
Yeah,
now.
there will be
There will
more.
be more, and
Yeah.
there'll be more information, and and now that people like us are having these conversations, we're not the only ones thinking about this. So as they're getting more and more access, we're going to be information bombing them
Yeah.
like crazy.
Well, check this out. In Iran, fun story. So my grandmother's Baha'i. I grew up Baha'i my whole life. So in Iran,
Interesting. Mighty Rhino is Baha'i.
ask him, in Iran, if you are caught practicing Baha'i or you identify as the Baha'i faith, you'll be arrested and you'll go to jail.
Interesting.
Wow.
I mean, shitty, but
Why the fuck? Okay, we're in 2018. Like you said, like we're over the conversation being gay. We're capitalizing on it. Banks are about it. Everyone's
Yeah.
about it. Everyone's trying to make money off of it now. Like we're loving it. We're like elevating from that. We're like, how do we get in on this? Like,
Yeah.
you know? And then in Iran, people are getting arrested and put in jail for deciding they want to practice something else. That is mind blowing. And like you said, I'm hoping that the internet, like you said, kind of creates that sense for us where we can not only be aware of this stuff, because most people don't even know that. Like even the other day when they passed a law in Saudi Arabia where women are allowed to drive, and the police officers were handing out roses to all the women driving as like a congratulations, and all these people on the internet were like, what? Women couldn't drive in Saudi Arabia? And I was like, where have you been this whole time? Like, are you kidding me? So it's educating, I think, on both sides where like we're helping these people by breaking out of those barriers, and we're also vice versa learning more that like we're not in this bubble of safety. Like the rest of the world still suffers in weird ways that we could never understand, you know?
And we feel, and because the information's more immediate and we're getting it more consistently, we feel more emotionally attached to it.
We do.
Which is why we feel like things are getting worse. They're not. Things are much better than they were 20 or 50 or 100 years ago.
Definitely.
But we are aware of it, and it hurts. It hurts to hear about there was just some shit happen where many people died today. I don't want to say where. I can't remember. I keep only half remembering facts. But there was another like disaster. Somebody died. And it's like, holy shit, man. Like, we need, like, that could easily be us. I understand the roll of the dice that it was that I came out of my mother's vagina. I could have come out of any vagina on the planet. I didn't pick it. I had nothing to do with it. I didn't play a mini game, and I won the mini game to win.
You could have been a rat, you know, running on a wheel
I
to
don't
make
believe I could have been
electricity.
a rat. I'm just saying, the other people in my species, nobody is better or worse than me. So somebody who's born in Kazakhstan or some other place where things are tougher, I'm like,
They didn't get to
cool.
choose either.
What can we do to fix that problem? If not immediately, long term. What's a good solution that eventually? So I feel like that we're doing what our generation's portion of fixing those places. You know what I mean? We are
I can agree with that.
setting a record today again. I think we're running even longer than last week.
Oh, really?
So we should wrap up pretty soon.
I didn't even get through all my laws.
Oh, I got lots of shit I wanted to say too. Yeah, so I think the only thing I want to say before we wrap up is I've got a big show coming up in Prague. Probably listeners don't go there by any means, but I'm really excited about it. August 23rd. And then what else am I playing? Next week? When this podcast comes out, I might have a show coming up soon. Oh, no, it's fucking...
It's Friday.
It's
what are you
tomorrow.
talking about?
Never mind.
No, it's not
So-
tomorrow. What's going on right now?
No, it's in 2 days, right?
Yeah, it's on Friday.
What day's today?
Two
It's
days.
Tuesday.
Okay, so
3
it's in a couple
days,
days.
3 days.
So when you listen to the podcast, the Niagara show will have already passed.
Yes.
I'm just trying to think if there's anywhere else people can come support me. On August 19th, I'm in Toronto.
About your block party. Is
Yeah, August 19th in Toronto. The Ilva Block Party, the Mighty Rhino, I don't know who else is on it, but I am on it. I'm a little bit buzzed right now. Yeah, that's it. Come see me on those dates.
Buzztastic.
Sweet. Are we wrapping up?
We should. It's like 2.5 hours right now.
Do I get to plug? Do I get
Yeah, plug. That's what I mean.
Plug
No, this is
away.
plug time.
Plug?
Yeah, no, it's plug
I
time.
was like, plug time.
No, plug away.
Obviously, you know, Jess did the amazing favor of plugging me earlier with my social media,
Plug
so
again.
you can go and find me there, Icon Island, all day. If you just search it, it'll come right up. But also, look at this amazing hat I'm wearing. Just dropped our C'est La Vie line. You can go get
Is it
that on the
yours?
website. So me and my buddy started it together. We have a deep connection because single dad life, and he's a single dad. So we got this whole C'est La Vie line going on. He's the designer. I do, you know me, I do all the business stuff.
Yeah, I love it.
And we just dropped them. We got this black one, but like honestly, the best one is like we have a purple suede,
Ooh.
and also we do like customize. We even custom inside. So like,
Ooh.
how many hats do you have that have shit on the inside?
I
Not
like
too
that.
many.
I like that a
So
lot.
like, yeah, and I feel like everyone can kind of relate to that. Like C'est La Vie, like that's life. Like
Yeah.
we've all had those moments. So it's pretty cool, and I'm really excited. This is like our second drop. We sold out first drop at Brims. Like
Bang, bang.
Yeah,
second
looks
time
super sweet
around.
quality.
I like it a lot.
Thank you. We put a lot of work into making sure it's like primo quality so that, you know what I mean, it's different than the rest. Because I feel like everyone's starting like a clothing line nowadays, and like it's not always the best. So yeah, go check that out.
Cool.
SailorVbrand.com.
What are you going to plug?
What am I gonna play?
Yeah, what are you going to plug?
I don't know. Damaged goods. I got nothing to plug.
I love it. I love it.
damagegoodspod@gmail.com.
Plug the damaged goods.
At damaged goods everywhere. One thing I would really love is if you watch the video on this, or if you just kind of like casually peep it, the best thing you can do for us is subscribe to the podcast, because then it automatically comes into your podcast app, and also it tells the iTunes algorithms that we matter somewhat. So if you fuck with the podcast, subscribing to it is probably the best thing that you could do. And if someone recently was like, do I have a podcast app on my phone? So if you have an iPhone, there's literally an app called Podcasts. You know, Apple be
It's
keeping
like
shit.
built in?
It's built in. It's called Podcasts
That's
on
pretty
their
cool.
iPhone, and you can just hit add feed, Damaged Goods Pod, and that's us. The other Damaged Goods is Jake the Snake.
Oh yeah.
And I was
shout out Jake the
I was
Snake.
telling Graydon, so there's another Damaged Goods podcast, because when I Googled the name first,
Yeah.
there was no podcast. But then between the time I Googled it and when we launched, a fucking another Damaged Goods podcast launched, hosted by a guy named Jake the Snake. He doesn't do very many episodes.
He's
and
not the wrestler.
And he's very different than us. And to be honest, my prediction, as nice as I'm sure he is that he won't last very long.
I feel like this is the original damaged
it
goods,
is.
and that's what matters the most because it's the pioneer of the damaged goods.
But you don't want you don't want the Jake the Snake one. You want the
We
Illy
both have
and
it
Jess one.
tattooed on us, so
Yeah,
I
we
think
do.
that makes it pretty official.
yeah, that's
Damaged
it.
Goods.
No one can top that. Jake the Snake doesn't have a tattoo that says damaged goods, so
This
he needs to
podcast
get off.
is a huge part of what we're going to do in the future. I can't wait for where it's going. The numbers keep going up. I'm really happy about that. Lynn, thank you for coming.
Thanks for having me, guys. I really appreciate it. And girls.
Yes.
And dog.
Yeah.
You've been an amazing dog the whole show. Super chill. And this is your debut appearance.